Happy Workforce Wednesday.
Welcome.
Pat, I'm so excited you're here joining us for your first live show, your first XDay. Wow, so many first.
I'm overwhelmed. It's just too much.
Well, thank you everyone who's joining us across Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, and Twitter. We are so glad you're here for day 3 of QuestionPro Spring XDay because, I love a little alliteration, so I could not have it be Workforce Wednesday. And so everyone, welcome. This is Pat's first time. We hope this isn't your first time because we hope you've been here for 2 days already. And if you aren't new, you know the drill. But if you are new, Pat, tell us what they get for free right below you.
It's basically the Starbucks, right? So we've got a little bit of a gift when it comes to the free coffee here.
Yeah, you're going to get a $5 Starbucks gift card on us using, and this is not a shout out to research because they've gotten way too many shout outs, but using our QuestionPro communities tool. And so just fill out that little survey and you will get a $5 Starbucks card on us. And a great way to stay connected today is by jumping into the comments section. That's where our speakers are going to be able to say hi to you. Sonia's already down there. And, I can see her kind of leaving a comment. And I'm joining us today from Austin, Texas. But Pat, you are not in Austin, Texas. Where are you?
I am not. I'm all the way up north in Montreal, Canada. So a little bit of French Canadianness happening here this morning. I heard that it's going to be rather hot in your neck of the wood, right? You were say 105.
Yeah, and feels crazy. Like with 75% humidity. And so I'm pretty jealous of your sweater right now. I'm not gonna lie. I couldn't even wear a sweater in my house.
It's a little bit chilly here, to be honest. I gotta, I've got all my blankets and stuff. So,
Pat, I really thought we were going to be friends. I don't know about it now. And so if you've got a question for me or Pat, various, we love talking about the weather, evidently. Make sure to jump that into the chat channel. If you have any questions for our speakers, make sure to put those in the comments and you'll get a nice little shout out on the screen. And if you are going to share today across any of the multiple platforms, please use XDay 2020 as the hashtag because we'll be able to track it, like it, and share it. And so what else do we got going on today? Oh, here you go. If you missed it, get a free Starbucks card. We will be giving these away all day. So if you need a morning pick-me-up, an afternoon pick-me-up, or just an extra whatever you need for the day. Had this delivered this morning because that's my treat to myself for surviving X days. And then where to keep up with QuestionPro throughout the week. Okay, Pat, tell me your favorite show. And it doesn't have to be Workforce or At Life, but I'm sure it is.
Yeah, it kind of is. I'm a little bit of I'm all about, people, employee experience. So yeah, that has to be my favorite. But I love the fact that we're covering so many different topics. I love that as a company, we're just, producing so much quality content out there. And I know I've got a few episodes to catch up on for the others as well.
Oh, yeah. So if you are wondering what all these things are, we've got podcasts, we've got live shows, we've got blog posts, we've got LinkedIn newsletters. If you need to keep up with us, you can. Trust me, we're out there. And so we cover Work at Life is our employee experience podcast hosted on the Hubspot podcast network. And Sonia and Maddie do an amazing job. And if you stick around, you're going to be able to see a live taping at Work at Life at, oh, nope, I have it in my slides. Sorry, Dan, I got to go over you at 11 a.m. And so please make sure you join us for that. I know this is going to be super epic. And then you can always catch it later on your favorite podcast outlet, stream. What do the streamers say? Wherever you get your podcast. And at 11, or just in a bit, we're going to have Dan Riley, and he is going to be talking about inspiring a human-centered workplace. What are you looking forward from this talk, Pat?
So not to spoil anything, but I
Yes.
think he's going to be talking about fostering a change mindset being critical to achieve that sustainable human-centered culture. And I think, with everything happening now, I feel like everything is just like speeding up in 2022. So change is definitely top of mind for me as well. So I'm really looking forward to hearing what he has to say on that.
Oh, you ended too fast. I was taking a drink of coffee. You gotta time it out, bro. Come on. I know this is your first time.
Oh, my bad.
You've got to support me here. Come on. That is, for everyone watching, I know sometimes it may seem like we've gone a little off the rails, but trust me, we're here to make sure that you have the most authentic experience possible. I did actually a whole LinkedIn post about it last week about why we do these live shows. And it's for little moments like this, or yesterday where we were talking about the Kardashians and it was on topic. So, I just want to make sure that if you're joining us, make sure you have a little fun, because at QuestionPro, we're always like want to have fun, because like that's life. And just like, oh my gosh, I'm so good at my job. Just at work at life.
Wow. The transition is amazing.
In my mind. And just like work at life, we want to make sure everything is rounded out and making sure that your work and your life really support one another, because I don't think we work to live. I think we like live to live, to be honest. And then you're getting a little bit of a debut here, Pat. What's going on here in this leadership spotlight?
Yeah, so we're going to have a little conversation with Sonia from the team here, talking about leadership and diving into a little bit of a tool that we have, the 360 feedback platform.
Ooh.
So I'll do a quick demo and just talk about basically any way we can help when it comes to leadership here in organizations.
I love that. Well, hopefully this will give you a good warm up so you're not, camera shy or camera ready. I didn't really give you a choice if you were. So here we are.
All good. It's all good.
So, hey, everyone, I just want to remind you that if you're joining us across LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, or I think that's it, that we are, I was like, wait, that we are going to be live here all day until about 1 p.m. And make sure you get a coffee on us right below Pat's face, scan that QR code, and you will be able to get a $5 gift card on us to go spend. Just make sure you take XDay with you on your phone while you go to get your coffee. And then also, we've got a kind of a fun giveaway. I love quizzes. And so if you guys are interested in taking this employee experience assessment, I'm sure it's like, I know the women of QuestionPro worked very hard on this. And so me being like, take this fun quiz is probably not what they are like, hey, we put a lot of work into this, which they did. But you, this is kind of your jam, Pat. Tell me about, some of the insights they're going to be able to get out of this.
When it comes to the assessment here?
Yeah.
I'm actually not going to say anything on this one. I'm actually looking forward to seeing what comes out of it. Okay. I'm not spoiling anything. I'm a huge spoiler, and this time let's just roll with it and we'll discover it together.
You and I could never be in the same room. I'm terrible at keeping secrets. Terrible. If you have a secret, keep it to yourself. That's what a secret is. Yeah. Don't tell other people.
I've been spoiling, like I've lost too many great friends by spoiling like movies in the theaters and stuff. So now I've learned to kind of like
just keep it, just call it a day.
Yeah.
Well, we are so excited. Y'all are here joining us for QuestionPro XDay Spring Workforce Wednesday, and I really hope that you can come and join us throughout the afternoon for all these wonderful, wonderful sessions. I know we're going to have some amazing, takeaways, and there is definitely, I don't want there to be any like fatigue out there around, getting the webinar fatigue we've definitely been seeing, but please stick around. Pat, now, have you watched the last couple days? I was going to ask you your takeaway, but I don't want to.
I peeked in a little bit left and right. Let me share some takeaways. I guess later on this day, I'm gonna get my notes together. But I wasn't fully there. I'm gonna be honest. I was working on some stuff, but I'll get back to you on that one too.
You know, that's how I like kind of feel, though there was a couple times where I popped in and I was like, man, I should have been listening better. But you know, there definitely has been some amazing content throughout the day. And so we are always willing and ready to, you know, connect with you guys. So make sure you're jumping into the comments and like getting ready to ask our speakers questions, because we've got Dan Riley in about 2 minutes. As soon as I see his camera turn on backstage, we're going to be ready to go because it is 10 o'clock and I want to be cognizant of everyone's time. And, you know, there is definitely, I think, like a great energy about today, because employee experience, the human experience, is going to be so important. And so I'm excited. Are you excited, Pat?
I'm extremely excited for this. I can't wait to hear about all of the knowledge transfer, the information, the conversation, discussions happening. So yeah, looking forward to it.
Amazing. Well, everybody joining us, make sure to get your free Starbucks. I'm going to bring Dan and Sonia to the stage here in about 60 seconds. And so, or not even 66 seconds. And so, you know, I'm so excited. Thanks so much for joining me, Pat. And I'll see you in about an hour.
See you in a bit.
Okay. Bye.
Bye.
Ooh, ooh. Oh, nope. Hold on. Not fast enough. That was my bad.
Hey, Dan! Welcome to QuestionPro Workforce XDay. Clearly, you can tell how excited I am to see you.
I love it. It's in Workforce Wednesdays. Is that what it is, right? Workforce Wednesdays.
It was yes, that's all Crystal. Like, we were trying to figure out who's going which day for the event, because we broke it out between research, CX, and workforce. And I think she was like pretty flexible and everything, except for like, it's Workforce Wednesday. Like, it's just got to be like everyone else, you pick your own day. The workforce goes on Wednesday.
I love it. But yeah, Crystal and Pat should have, if they don't have one, they should have a morning radio show.
I know.
Yeah.
Well, you know, like social media, marketing, it's all very fluid. So we're always floating around ideas. So we'll definitely grab that one.
Yes.
Absolutely. Oh, well, thank you so very much for joining us. It's such a pleasure. For those who know us, who know you, who know me, who know us together, have probably seen us share screen quite a bit over the last year. And I think maybe about a year ago is when we met and just realized in how many similar ways we view the world and our passion to change it for the better and explore different ways to do it. And I've just really loved all of our conversations. I've loved how much I've learned from you and your incredible experience. But not only that, also how you see the world and what you want to accomplish next and what you want to do. And so anytime that I have an opportunity to have a platform like this and share all of that, like with more people I know and more people that know QuestionPro, I absolutely love it. So I'm so thankful for you, for your time today and for joining us. I do.
It really is mutual. Thank you for all the kind words. It's been the best relationships are those, you know, that share back and forth. And so you've inspired me just as much, maybe more. So
No, impossible, but thank you. And I still like, I always mention this when we talk, and hopefully I won't be able to say it for much longer, but we have yet to meet in person.
I know.
We were this close 2 weeks ago when we were both like West Coastish between, you know, LA and Vegas, but I'm fully optimistic that sometime this year we'll find a way.
And then we'll do a live stream so everyone can see the grand meeting.
Absolutely. Because those are like, I mean, it's not to be missed. I think that I can't even imagine like the energy and the passion that we share through a screen. Like once we actually find ourselves in the same room around all the people, you know, who we know and love, like it's going to be just incredible. So something to look forward to until then, I guess. I'll think of it like as a half glass full kind of thing. Like it's something to look forward to since it hasn't happened yet. So I usually when you and I talk, I kick us off like this, like with all this admiration for who you are and what you do. But for the benefit of everybody, I am going to read a brief bio about you so they can know a little bit more around about your background and just your philosophy and approach before I hand it over to you for the keynote. And then after you're done presenting, I'll pop back in. Everybody, please, if you have any questions, I think it's again always so insightful to listen to Dan, and he has this incredible view on the workplace and life and the whole person experience. And so if you have any questions, keep them coming through his talk. We'll monitor them. We'll make sure to pop them in the end. I have the pleasure of talking with Dan quite frequently, so I don't want to monopolize the time. So if there are any additional questions from anyone else, I will, certainly pull those in. So a quick, more specific intro about Dan before we turn over the mic to him. So Dan is a thought leader, technologist, change agent, and optimist in the area of people expertise and the future of work. He inspires people to believe and focus on what inspires them. With a vision and commitment to change the way businesses think, act, and operate, Dan works with leaders and organizations around the world, helping them to meet the moment and mobilize for the future. He has more than 20 years of experience in the HR and technology industry. And Dan co-founded Modern Survey in 1999 until 2016 when the company was sold to Aon, and he served as its chief operating officer. And Dan recently co-founded RADICL, which I know you will tell us more about in your keynote. And finally, Dan is an entrepreneur, advisor, investor, keynote speaker, film producer, and musician who has shared billings with artists of national and international acclaim. And I love that part too, because I feel like that when I first got to know you, you were talking about the workplace, and I thought, we're so similar, and I'm an organizational psychologist, and you like swooped in this like musician and producer, and I was like, like, wait a minute, like, how is that even possible? Like, how often do you meet people who are focused in HR and have really such a diverse background? So I love all of your experience, but I love all of these different viewpoints that you bring from different parts of your life. So that's it about Dan. I had to read it because I feel like if I actually talked about you, it would take way longer because I'm sure I would have turned this into a book. But without further ado, Dan, I will turn it over to you. You let me know if you're okay sharing the slides. I know we have a backup just in case that you got it. All right, so I'll turn it to you, and I'll be here in the background for any help and questions until we chat.
Perfect. Thank you, Sonia, and I appreciate the warm intro. Sonia made my intro sound better than it really is. So, so thank you. Again, really happy to be here. I do want to thank QuestionPro for putting this event together. I'm looking forward to hear speakers today. I believe Sonia and Maddie Grant and Dr. Candace Steele Flippin are going to be speaking next. And I think Pat Laverne and Sonia will be speaking after that. So a really fun morning, and I'm really proud to be kicking it off here. So today, our focus is going to be talking about how do we foster a change mindset as we together create an advance forward towards a more human-centered working world. That's our focus of today's conversation. I'm not going to use slides for the first few minutes. I do have our main slide up. I'm going to shift ahead one, and then I'm just going to speak for a little bit. So I hope that's okay. I am, as Sonia said, one of the co-founders of RADICL, and we're very proud to be supporting this event as well. Very quickly about RADICL. At RADICL, we believe inspired change is possible. We believe in the power of radical thinking. And we believe in tolerance and trust and empathy and courage and transparency and caring more and loving more. All these things we believe in, and the importance of these things within the workplace and within society, right? And we believe in the whole person experience. And this is in inviting and celebrating everything about each other, right? And this includes new constructs, cultural and physical and social, intellectual and spiritual well-being. And most importantly, we believe in the non-negotiable reality that we must and can do better in creating a human-centered workplace within our organizations. And if we get all of this right, through all of this, inspired change is possible. And that's what we stand for. And that's what we are committed to. I wanted to start, I talked about this a few weeks ago during a presentation, but I want to talk about this again. I wanted to start by sharing something I read a few weeks back, and it really amplifies the importance of this conversation around the power of building human-centered workplaces. So we're going to have a little fun, and it's going to be a little interaction as well. So get ready, get your fingers ready to type in the chat. I read a fascinating story about someone who broke the world record for the longest tenure, the most consecutive years working at the same company. Okay, so the guess, what I'd like you to type in is how many total years, consecutive years, broke the record for the longest tenure at the same company. So let's see some of your guesses. I'm going to click over to comments. Just start putting numbers out there. Anyone who's listening. 78, good guess. 50, these are, I'm going to say, just to make it easy, low. Sonia's closer. Gia, you're low. Dan, nope, still higher. Pat knows the answer, and yet he's guessing 50. So it's he's like the Price is Right game show master, goes right down the center. No, keep a few more guesses. Higher. 40, 48. Okay. All right. Well, I think, we're getting close with this next one. Close. Let's go up a little bit more. All right. If someone guesses, they get RADICL swag. So we'll give it 4 more seconds. 82, still higher, a little higher. The answer is 84. So 84, 85, Sonia, Sonia, you were closest, but you were over. And Price is Right if you go over. So I think the winner is Agia. No, Shruti is the winner, and Dan 100. Well, that would be interesting. But it's close to 100. So Walter Orthman of Brazil just turned 100 years old a few weeks ago. So 100 is within this conversation. And with that, he broke the world record for the longest tenure. He started working in 1938 for this textile company. He lives in Brazil, and he's now been with the company for more than 84 years. So 84 years and growing. And he described this record as his proudest achievement. He said that focusing on the present was what drove him to make history. And I want to quote him now. I don't do much planning nor care much about tomorrow. All I care about is that tomorrow will be another day in which I will wake up, I will get up, exercise, and go to work. You need to get busy with the present, not the past or the future. Here and now is what counts. End quote. So, like I said, he just celebrated his 100th birthday with coworkers and friends and family. And his advice for longevity was simple. He said, work for a good company where people feel motivated. When we do what we like, we don't see the time go by. Simple enough. This is one of those goosebumps stories I wanted to share. And let me be clear, not because I think or suggest we should all work at the same company for 84 years. In fact, I think we shouldn't. I think changing jobs is healthy. Retiring is healthy, right? These are all healthy things. I bring this story up because the only way someone can actually work for the same company for 84 years is if there's a true trusting and caring relationship between the worker and the organization. And this is the true definition of a successful human-centric workplace at its best. So I wanted to share this as I open because this really embodies and amplifies everything we are talking about today. So the the world continues to change around us. It continues to spin, right? This is ongoing, and things haven't changed or come to a stop. Things continue to change, and they are fluid, right? Change is fluid. So we don't say work has changed forever. What we say is work continues to change. And I'm an optimist, as Sonia pointed out in the intro, and I know Sonia is an optimist too. We'll talk about that in a little bit, I think. And I will always be, and it's been hard recently, I have to be honest, to be an optimist. There's a lot happening in the world, as we know. But being an optimist isn't always so easy. And as optimists, we have to find the opportunity in the challenging moments, right? We have to find the clarity within the chaos. And if we have to find the best of humanity, even when it's sometimes blurry. And the good news is, I will always believe in humanity. And we collectively, all of us, we have to believe in humanity because we've seen the positivity and the power of what people are capable of. So before we dive into my first slide, I do want to share a quick personal story about believing in those around us, believing in ourselves, in the best of those we surround ourselves with. I was one of the founders of Modern Survey with my brother, Patrick Riley, who's also on the call today, and he's also my co-founder and partner of RADICL. We were back in the day an employee engagement company. We were a holistic talent lifecycle measurement tech platform. And in 2008, the recession came along and hit many of us so hard. And like everyone, we had tough decisions to make, right? We believed in our purpose. We believed in what we did. We believed in our people. And we believed in ourselves. But the economic realities put us in a tough spot, as it did so many of you and so many small businesses. So after careful review and discussion, we made some decisions. And it wasn't lost upon us that our incredible team around us, our people around us, had gotten us to that moment in time. We were about 10 years old at the time. And we knew they were more important to us than anything else. So while so many companies, unfortunately, were cutting costs, people, and sometimes shutting their doors, we took a different approach. We continued to believe in our greatest asset, our greatest weapon, our greatest strength, our people, those humans that we chose, those humans that we surrounded ourselves around. So in order to keep every single person on the team, because we knew we'd be stronger on the backside, as founders, we decided not to pay ourselves for a period of time, as we should. This is the first thing you do. It's your company. You take the hit first, and we did that. But even with this, we knew this wasn't going to be enough, and it was going to be a struggle. So we had to reduce, free Mountain Dews and snacks and perks and things like that. And everyone understood this, and I think, in fact, expected this. And everyone knew we wanted to stay intact. But an amazing thing started to happen that has changed me forever, I think. Employee after employee started to walk into our offices and ask for pay reductions. The word got out, obviously, that we were taking pay cuts, and our employees actually came to us and asked us for pay reductions. And I get emotional every time I tell the story because I wouldn't be here today if not for this. So they came and offered what they could afford, the reduction in what they could afford. I mean, who walks into your office and says, I would like a pay reduction? Our people believed in what we believed, and they were willing to sacrifice short-term pay for something greater, something meaningful. And what was that something? Well, it was each other, right? So they didn't do this for us. And that is key to remember. And I learned that over time. They didn't do it for us, right? They did it for each other, right? They did it for their teams, for all the employees, because they knew this was the way they could stay together, the way their family would remain intact. And what happened? We survived. In fact, we thrived once we bounced back because we were all in it together. We were stronger together, and we all knew that. and everyone was paid back, and we started to grow at speeds we could have never imagined. And it would not have happened if not for the family staying strong together. So when I bring this up because when I say, and I say this often, for those of you who've heard me speak, revenue, profitability, shareholder value, company value, when I say these are outcomes of doing right by your people, that these are outcomes of creating a human-centered workplace. I say this because I live this. You can't forecast everything, right? Believing, empowering, and trusting in people around you is the best way to move things forward. In fact, it's the only way to truly change things. And today, for me, if not for this connectedness of our people, if not for the selfless decisions our people made and their belief in each other, I would not be here speaking with you right now. And I'm forever grateful, and I always will be. And with that, I will always believe in the power of humanity and the power of what people can do and accomplish together. So I wanted to share this with you. It is a personal story for me, but it's one that really changed me and put me on this mission of fighting for a human-centered workplace and always putting people first. So let's get interactive one more time. When you think about working within and experiencing a more human-centered workplace, right? What does it look like? What does it feel like? What's different? So if you could all drop in 1 or 2 word answers or short phrases. And again, if we're acting in a more human-centered way within our workplace, what does it look like? What does it feel like? What's different from what it is today versus what it could be tomorrow? So I'm going to look at some of your answers coming in. So what does a human-centered workplace look like and feel like? One or two words to describe it. Let's see, looking for comments coming in. Connection, thank you, Sonia, about personal issues. Connections based on honesty and trust, absolutely. And these are all things we're going to be talking about now. So authenticity, love it. Outcomes, people rather than hours put in. Yeah, love it. So let's dive in to where we are today, and let's go backwards in time a little bit too. The world does need our attention and care more than ever before. And with the statement, our workforce needs our attention and care more than ever before. So we do continue to be in the midst of a work revolution. And like I said, again, work has changed forever. It's continuing to change. It's fluid. We're experiencing a polarized society with extreme viewpoints and opinions where unfortunately science, facts, and data don't always prevail, but they must. And this is how we illuminate the truth. And I'll say this a couple of times today, right? Using data is critical and is a must as we continue to create and build a human-centric workplace, right? Using data is critical. We too often live with fear and distraction, over love and optimism. And we are all continuing to fight for social and racial justice and lasting change within society and within our own personal worlds and within our own personal teams and within organizations. And there's still so much work to do. We have to stay so focused on that. We're finally coming down off the cliff from a global pandemic that we had virtually no control over. And this affected our personal lives, our work lives, and our futures in many cases, right? It changed things and it continues to change things. And as a result of this, mental health and stress continues to rise across families, communities, within organizations. As the vision of our futures does remain a bit uncertain and fluid. We've had to live through furloughs and reductions and reduced hours, and organizations had to reimagine themselves literally overnight in some cases. Right? And there's a lasting impact. So this recovery is long and this is slow. So it's not going to happen overnight. So I repeat, the world needs our attention and care more than ever. But I remain extraordinarily optimistic because of all of you. So with that, let's start to talk about change and a change mindset as we think about building human-centric workplaces. The first thing, and you've all heard this, I'm sure growing up and in many times, many conferences and speakers, but I'll say it again, change is meant to be uncomfortable. But I'm going to add to this, change is an opportunity. It always is, and it always has been. Change, in fact, is necessary. So organizations have an obligation to take action so they may do better for the humans who work for them. I'm going to repeat that one. Organizations have an obligation to take action so they may do better for the humans who work for them. And this is at the core of building a more human-centered workplace. I often talk about our North Star and what we are fighting for and why do we show up and what is our purpose and what is our why. So when we think about that, long-term success isn't found in being profit-centered. And again, profitability, revenue growth, as we know, these are all outcomes, right? These are outcomes, as I talked about earlier, of taking care of your people, putting people first. Long-term success is found in being human-centered. So let's tackle the question of what is humanity in business? What do we mean when we talk about being human-centered? It's a nice word, it sounds good. So we're going to define it a little more, and then we're going to talk about steps that we can take within our own organizations. Number one, focusing on people, right? Now, what does that mean? Focusing on people more than the algorithm. And this means not focusing on the newest tech platforms or the shiny graphs. It doesn't mean we're not focused there. It means we're always putting people first. Everything we do has to make a better experience for individuals within the organization. And building this type of culture within organizations requires relationships, right? Human relationships, conversations, where we ask each other on a regular basis, how are you doing? How are you feeling? And genuinely care about the answer, right? If we go back 3 years, a common conversation starter was, how are you doing? And we moved on. So we need to actually ask this question and genuinely care about what we hear in response. And any healthy relationship requires communication and being present. So right, taking the time to listen, asking questions, learning and adapting. It means putting your phone down during conversations, right? Putting it upside down on the desk isn't enough. In fact, I argue put it away, right? Have a conversation, be present with your people. This is a critical part of a human-centric workforce. And we need to create human situations and interactions that inspire connection and collaboration, right? A good friend of mine recently reminded me, leaders don't fix teams, teams fix teams. Right? Leaders don't fix teams, teams fix teams. So I'll say that, I want to say that over and over again, but a leader can inspire, but human-centric success is up to everyone. Right? So asking the simple question of each other, what does it feel like? And you can do this in a small team or large team. What does it feel like if we trust each other more? What does it feel like to us? What does it feel like if we're more empathetic during interactions, right? What does that feel like to us? Taking ownership of these words, like trust, empathy, and humility. Again, what does it feel like if we trust each other more within this group, right? What do we feel like? So make them personal, make them relevant. And this is the key part of building a human-centric workplace. So putting people first always, we talk about that, but what does this mean? It means providing power to your people with empathy, humility, compassion, and love. And it means a recommitment to your organizational values and purpose, right? So your people can connect to that. They need to know what you stand for within your organization. This is that relationship of 84 years that I talked about earlier, right? There's a relationship between personal values and purpose between the individual and the organization. And we must continue to reimagine how we work with the human always top of mind. And we'll get into that in a little bit more. So how do we change? How do we do this? How do we create culture that is human-centered? It's a great thing to do, but again, how do we do it? So first of all, traditional employee engagement, while it served us well over the years, will fall short, right? So if your answer is let's just do more surveys, more engagement surveys, that's not going to work. And I'm not saying engagement data and surveys are bad. I am saying they aren't enough. So what do we need to do? Well, organizations need to be more agile, number one, as so much remains fluid and uncertain. And so human-centered design is more important than ever. And we need to know our people. We need to truly connect with each other, empower each other, but we also need to meet people where they are. And that requires a great deal of agility. So with all of this said, one thing we can say is very clear. Organizations that choose change by putting their people first and building a culture of trust, connection, and transparency will come out on top, right? So being human-centered isn't just a nice idea. And I wasn't asked to come here to speak about being human-centered because it's a fluffy, nice thing to do. It's, of course, the right thing to do, right? To be human, to care about each other, putting people first always. But it's more than that. It's a necessary business transformation, right? So being human-centric is a necessary business transformation. And if this is not on your top priority list, it needs to be. So what's changed from the old world to the new world? I want to go through this quickly. There's a radical shift that is happening, and what motivates people is changing. In fact, it has changed and will continue to, right? So people listening models focusing on willingness to stay or managerial relationships, while of course important in classic performance management, learning and development solutions, right? This isn't enough anymore. We need to look outside the standard HR models, and we have to arm ourselves for the future. And this is looking at the new world of whole person experience, people science and purpose framework over a platform. And inspiration and motivation will rise from a willingness to fully understand each other and listen more and trust more. And this will allow people to shine. This will allow people authenticity to shine. And how do we get authenticity from our people? Well, listening to them, being present with them, trusting them. And this is the best of what we mean when we say whole person experience. So if we get this all right, we can unlock what people are saying and thinking and feeling and how they are connecting with an organization's purpose, allowing them to thrive. And in turn, fueling the organization to thrive, right? We know people are organizations' fuel, right? They need to be thriving before an organization can be thriving. It's that simple, right? Imagine an organization as a beautiful car, but with no gas. It won't get you very far. And if we're going to put gas in it, let's put in high octane gas, right? The best gas. Let's make sure we're using the highest quality of care and maintenance. And this is our people. This is what makes the car run. And again, everything ties back to this being the way we create human-centered workplaces. So I want to talk a little bit about a choose change framework, but I'm looking at the time. Before I do that, I want to talk about four changes that we're seeing and that we need to focus on in 2022 and beyond. And I'm going to go through these quickly, and then I'll walk through the model, then we'll bring Sonia on. And these four categories are connecting people and purpose. And these are things that you definitely want to be focusing on. Connecting people and purpose, addressing talent shortages and turnover, rethinking how we define productivity and engagement, and continuing to create a community of belonging. So connecting people in purpose. The majority of workers expect their jobs to give them purpose, as we know. We've been talking a lot about that. Through the pandemic, they've had a lot of self-reflection, looking in the mirror, what's important to them, what's important to me. So new research shows that over 60% of workers actually choose their employer based on their belief system, and this number is rising. So when employees feel a sense of purpose, they will be more inspired, more loyal, and actually become your best brand ambassadors, right? So what should you focus on? Define your brand promise and purpose and amplify it, scream it out loud. Right, and then enable and empower your employees to engage with that purpose, become a part of that change. And of course, use predictive analytics to understand what's working and what's not working, right? Data must be a part of a successful human-centered workforce. I could repeat that over and over again. So number 2, addressing talent shortages. We've found that close to 50% and growing of the U.S. working population are actively job searching or watching for opportunities, right? And we know some are leaving for better pay, others fear of going back to unsafe working conditions, and some are burned out, some are exhausted, they're beat, right? They want to take a break, and the status quo is not working for them. So what can we do there? First of all, stop guessing, right? Stop guessing why you can't fill your candidate pipeline or why your employees are leaving, and start listening and responding to employee needs. So I can't stress this enough. You have to stop guessing and start listening. And you can do this by defining your experience goals, getting stakeholder alignment, ask questions, right? What should your candidate experience feel like? What should your employee experience feel like? And understand it, make it your own. Again, don't guess, ask, understand, listen, adapt, and then change. And then finally, based on what you learn, build a best-in-class experience strategy, right? Focused on engaging candidates and new hires, and focus on employee experience, whole person experience, focusing on retaining and inspiring current employees. So number 3, rethinking productivity and engagement. This one, as we know, is a hot topic. About 90% of employees say they want to be allowed to work remotely in some cases or all of the time. So 9 out of every 10 employees would prefer to work remotely. Others who can't, frontline positions, and they need more support and flexibility to accommodate outside work demands. So the key word here is flexibility, flexibility, flexibility. So it is time to rethink your process and programs and practices to ensure employees have the flexibility. And what can you do? Define your processes and programs and policies around flexible work, communicate them, right? Implement listening programs, not just surveys, that take a new approach into gathering feedback and measuring productivity. And then align a wide range of data, but with intentionality, right? So a wide range, but specific, with specific work outputs to identify obstacles and opportunities for improving your overall productivity across the board. And then experiment and listen and learn and change. And finally, we need to create a community of belonging. Companies across industries are moving forward, accelerating their commitment and cultivating diverse and equitable, inclusive cultures, advancing formal programs. And organizations that will succeed will see improved job performance, less turnover, more inspired workers, just simply a better human experience. But companies must move from promise to progress. They have to move from promise to progress, right? We can't stop at promise. and this takes courage to recognize the continued change that's needed. And this takes commitment. So I want to quickly bring Sonia on in about 3 minutes. There's a change model up. I want to walk through this, and I'll do this quickly. Everything we've been talking about sort of sets up the need to change, why we should change, the purpose of change, why a human-centered workforce. There's a little We're back. Oh, there's Sonny. There's Sonny. I think there might be a little okay.
Is it?
No, unfortunately, it's a little.
I think we're away.
It's gone. It's gone for now. Here, I'll just finish quickly with this model before as we get the audio working. So real fast, change mindset is the most important thing before change can even begin, and this takes courage, right? Understanding I need to change. The status quo is not good enough. I want to go over there. The North Star is where we need to be. It's the willingness to let something go, the willingness to adapt and change. That takes courage. In order to change, you must be connected with people around you. People need to support you through any change you're going through in life. And that takes a certain amount of humility and empathy, right? Going through any change, understanding what you don't know, getting different perspectives on how to move forward, and having transparent conversations and being committed to that change, committed to that direction you're going. And only then can we begin with a change approach. And this is made up of inspiring people first, right? You need to be inspired to change, but you need that mindset first. And this allows you to overcome inertia with that change mindset, right? And then we prepare. Do we have everything in place? Do we have the right tools? Do we have the right technologies? Do we have the right alignment, right? Across the organization, the right belief of why we're changing? Have we communicated effectively, right? That's the preparation stage. So don't just jump to the change plan without really preparing it. The activation is where it starts. And this is where we start to unlock our people power through listening programs, through implementing any type of change tools, conversations, really getting up there and saying, this is where we are today. This is where we're going, activating, gathering data, listening. And that leads us to answers that ultimately drive and allow us to create sustained change. We listen and we adapt. We listen and we adapt. And with this, we can create change. It's a simple model, but powerful. And it can be applied to the smallest of changes within organizations to the largest of transformations. So I think, let's see if Sonia's back yet. Sonia, it looks like you're just about back. I will say a quote. I think you might appreciate. I think you're still. Can anyone else in the chat let me know if Sonia is still how she sounds? Is it just me?
Me, but I don't know why.
Yeah, it's a little bit. Well, you want to reboot, and then I can keep going for 5 minutes. Okay. So I'm assuming that. Okay, great. Thanks, Jess. There was some feedback, the robotic voice. So one of my favorite quotes I've been using recently is every great dream begins with a dreamer, right? Always remember you have within you the strength, the patience, and the passion to reach for the stars to change the world. And so my ask of all of you is we do need to focus more on each other. We need to take care of each other more. We need to inspire each other more. There's a lot of anger out there. There's a lot of, it's fair to say there's a lot of hate out there. It's up to us. It's up to individuals collectively to make change. So then this isn't just feel-good stuff anymore, right? So when we talk about this, this is necessary, right? This is needed, right? We need more love and more caring, and we need each other, right, to get through all of this. So that's my ask of all of you as you think about creating and pushing forward a more human-centered workforce. It's complicated and it's easy at the same time, right? So let's see if Sonia's coming back. She's booting up. All right, she's back. Fingers crossed.
All right, how do we
Yes,
sound?
it's
I didn't do
magical.
it. It's so wild. This is like
It's
my
always the reboot. I've been in technology a long time, and every single tech support call I had is just reboot. And then
yeah, but like what's so funny before our session today, I turned off my computer and restarted it. I turned off my router and restarted it. So I felt really good. And like, I got new Wi-Fi recently, so I have like corporate level Wi-Fi even though I work from home. It was my AirPods. And I was telling Guy, I'm like, I don't even know. like, this is the first time I don't even know how to troubleshoot this. So I turned off my phone in case it was there. But anyways, we're back. Nice
you
little
sound
curveballs.
crystal clear.
I love it. So I'm gonna I was taking notes on my iPad. Let's see. Hopefully that doesn't like cross any wires. But I mean, I have so many different notes, and we have some questions from the audience, and I have some questions, and I will selfishly start with mine, if that's okay. Um, because I'm hoping this is a really relevant one, and I'll start with a personal story too that has nothing to do with work, but is related to this. So I've been really thinking about well-being a lot over the last, couple of years, and how I can do it better, and how I can do it better in a more manageable way. So my ways were, doing yoga in the morning and, trying to drink lemon water and making sure I really incorporate fruits and more vegetables, sadly still than fruits. And the other day I was like, you know what? I'm gonna get coconut milk and make coffee with coconut milk in the morning. So yesterday I was rocking 2 coffees. I put in about like, I don't know, half a cup to a cup in each one. And I was like, I'm feeling great. And I'm not a vegetarian or a vegan. It was just a thing I wanted to try. And this morning, I gave myself a little bit of time, to lay down in bed, and I was like, you know what? I wonder what the health benefits are of coconut milk. And I found a couple of things, and it's like, oh, it has electrolytes, and it can help with this, this, and this. But be careful not to have too much. Maybe like a couple of tablespoons a day, couple times a week. I was like, what? Like, I had my daily intake like in one day. I had no idea. So why is that relevant to what we're talking about? You might be wondering is I wonder your take. Like, I think that there are a lot of people out there. There are a lot of leaders who care about their people and who just like, like me drinking all this coconut milk, think like that whatever they're doing the right thing. And they're taking the right steps and they're really caring. And I took a note, where you were saying ask, understand, listen, adapt, change, like to have that, the two-way conversation. But I don't know, like what have you seen in those situations where people think they're doing the right things, but they're missing the mark? Like, what is most generally a step that they're missing is that they're not asking, but they feel like I know my people so well. I just want to rush and take action. I don't want to take more time data gathering because, we're losing people. I want to make sure the ones like because to me, that is always the biggest opportunity for those people that really want to make a difference but they're just missing one critical component to really be most effective. Like in your research and your work with different companies, have you seen something really stand out in that kind of example?
I'd say the number one thing is timely feedback for leaders, because I think the moments where you can it can be soon forgotten. I think as you're working through the day, through the weeks, through the months, but getting and asking for timely feedback from your team, after a meeting, how did it go? Did we achieve what we wanted to achieve? So really opening up yourself to getting feedback and absorbing it. I think that's the number one opportunity. Like anything, if you wait 6 months, whether it's a relationship, a personal relationship, or in the workplace, it won't have as much meaning or impact. So my advice for anybody is, especially if there's retention issues or productivity isn't quite where it needs to be or engagement levels are low, is really open up a two-way conversation. Be willing to listen and empower people around you to give you real-time feedback.
Yeah.
I think that's one thing.
I think that's great advice. And I think to me, and this is something I'm still personally like a work in progress in, but sometimes people are worried about what they're going to hear and how bad is it going to be? And am I going to be able to handle it? And from my experience, most of the time, the feedback is actually much better than what we would expect. And it's not as harsh and it's more actionable and it's not so big. like a lot of companies we talk with think like if I start to like scratch the surface, what I'm going to find out is so monumental, and then I will have asked and I can't make that change. And I actually don't see that being the case very often. I think more than often it's, if I wish I would have asked sooner, because all those concerns that I had and maybe guesswork that I made would have been alleviated if I just knew. And to your point, like if it doesn't happen in a timely way, sometimes we really can, get so concerned and start spinning ourselves maybe in the wrong direction. So like that really positive energy, unfortunately, goes not in the place where it can be most useful or most impactful or address the biggest challenge.
Yeah. And also the feedback you typically hear, in most cases, it's not a surprise. It just reinforces probably what you already know. But sometimes hearing it from somebody else will help solidify it for yourself and help, activate change.
Yeah.
Those blind spots we talk about, sometimes those of course exist, but in most cases we're somewhat tuned into those areas of opportunity and improvement.
Yeah, and I think more often what I see than not is the magnitude of the need for something. So a lot of times what we'll see in our research is that managers, especially, the higher up you get in the organization, sometimes maybe experience culture differently than somebody who hasn't been with the organization as long. And so you might almost like know a list of concerns of challenges, but the magnitude and how you're experiencing them could be very different than your people. So asking for that feedback, really, like if you're like, okay, I have these 10 things that I have to work on, and okay, 10 things is kind of a lot. Where do I start? Without that conversation, you might pick out the things that are still important, but maybe not as critical across the organization as you're perceiving them. And then you go down that path and you're like, oh, wait a minute. Now that I had a conversation with a few people, I'm realizing that I could have, rechanneled my energy in a little bit more effective way.
Yes.
You talk a lot, and we've done some research together around values and how important they are, and really being, in line with that mission. How important do you think it's right now for organizations to, especially ones that have been established for more than several years, to take a step back? And I don't know if doing an audit is it doesn't sound like an exciting word, but maybe do some introspection and say, this is who we've been, but is this who we are today? Or maybe more importantly, is this who we want to be today? Because I've worked with organizations for a long time around values. And sometimes, in my opinion, there's this like misconception that we've established these values and we can never change. And a lot of times they say, well, but organizations are humans, like we change over time and we don't want to stay the same. Like that's not fun. Like we want to grow and evolve, and we want to realize that who maybe we thought we wanted to be, now we want to be somebody different. But like now with so much change happening, and you were, so articulately like communicating that now is a time where we can make a huge impact. How important is it, do you think, for organizations to prioritize doing that work today?
It's so important. I mean, just to put it in perspective, imagine looking at the progress that we made with women's rights, with racial justice. And if we go back and say, well, 30 years ago, it was like X, but that's just what it was. So we shouldn't have changed things. We shouldn't have pushed things forward. And we can't compare what happened 30 years ago to now. We have to understand that we're constantly evolving, right? So organizations have to do the same. And in fact, their people will expect that. And I think there'll be a lot of pride if organizations do step up and say, look, this is what we were, this is what we believe in, but it's okay to reset and change. Our value system is changing. A lot of the world is changing around us, like I said a few times. So I absolutely, and I don't, whether we call it an audit or just a recommitment, and adaptations, a tweaking, whatever it might be, absolutely, you need to do that. And that will allow you to attract better talent and build better relationships, right? Again, that 84-year relationship. That you want to make sure there's some connection, and an honest connection between here's what we stand for, here's our values, here's what I believe, here's what I stand for, and there's an honest connection there. And that creates great employee engagement.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think we have time maybe for one more question or so. I was telling when we were preparing with the team, like, oh, what do you want to do, between sessions? I was like, between sessions? Like, we're gonna have Dan for like every minute. Like there's like you're gonna have to like pull me off for the next session for us to stop talking. But let's see if maybe we'll have a minute, but I doubt it. One question came up from one of our participants or listeners that I thought is something that's really important to address now. So it says, you spoke about how you handled a recession and modern survey in 2008, and with the fear of looming or potential upcoming recession in the US again, what advice would you give to companies about what they can start thinking about or doing now if the economy does change to do right by their people? And I know for those of you who know me, I'm currently sitting in Buenos Aires, Argentina. I still get all of my news updates from the US, but I imagine, and I was just there, that there's a lot of that in the news. And a lot of it is, very real. A lot of it is, the media sometimes brings the worst case scenario. But I know a lot of companies are thinking about this. What would you be advised to, like, based on the reality today, what would you recommend they do?
I know we only have a couple minutes, so I'll just keep it very precise. We talk about you need to plan and not panic. So plan, don't panic. And I think we're too quick. And right now, I think too often we might start to panic. And I think that's absolutely the wrong thing to do. We can't just, if we immediately put the focus on the right here, right now, and that's all we focus on, and forget about our North Star, forget about where we're going, forget about our people programs, that it'll make it worse. You actually create your own problem, right? Yeah. So I think if you're being planful, communicating, paying attention to the environment around you, but try to keep panic to a minimum. And if you've done the work over the past couple of years and you have started to create more of a people first culture, a human centric culture, right? This is when you need your people more than ever, right? To step up and be a part of problem solving. And so, I urge you to again, you're all in it together. Stay calm and cool. Plan. Panicking is never helpful. So that would be my very high level advice, but hopefully someone can take that and take a breath.
Yes. I think everybody needs to hear that at least every once in a while. Absolutely. Like, it will be okay. And if you've done the work, that work will certainly help you. And if you haven't, do now. It's not too late. It's
And it doesn't mean in some cases there's tough decisions that organizations have to make, and I want to be clear with that. But if you're careful and again, you're not panicking, and it's planful and it's open and it's transparent, typically you can do the right thing by your organization and most importantly by your people, and that should always be the number one priority.
Yeah. Well, Dan, thank you so incredibly much for everything you shared with us today. It is always a pleasure. For those who were able to listen to the whole thing or want to catch up on different things and connect with you maybe after, what's the best way for our friends, family, and audience to get in touch with you?
I will put into chat or maybe someone from the RADICL team can put in my LinkedIn address.
Perfect.
Or my email address too, which is I'm completely fine, which is maybe we'll drop it into the chat here in a moment. So email or LinkedIn.
Yeah. And if you have my contact information, but you can't find Dan's, you let me know and I'll get it over to you. But thank you so much again. It's always such a pleasure. Thank you for sharing everything. I love every time I have an opportunity to talk with you. I have more ideas. I feel better and more optimistic about the future. So thank you again for spending the time with us, and we'll look forward to talking with you again soon.
Thank you for the invite. Have a great rest of the day. I'm looking forward to see the next couples.
That was so, man, it's so hard to do.
This was one amazing talk.
I know, I saw you taking so many notes.
In the background, I'm like, I think I've got like 8 pages. I'm like, oh my God, like it was like one golden nugget after another. That was great. Dan, Sonia, thank you so much for this chat. It was amazing.
Yeah, that was so good. And so everyone joining us who joined us during Dan's chat, welcome to QuestionPro Spring XDay Workforce Wednesday. We are so glad that you're here joining us across Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, and YouTube. And if you have questions or comments, please make sure to put them in the comments below. We will definitely get to them. And if you get something really good, maybe I'll even pop it up on the screen. And so, make sure, I guess this guy really loves coconut milk too. So I was like, ooh, I'm gonna learn some things. So, guys, please let us know where you're from, where you're listening in from. And because we just love, having a global community. Right now, I'm based in Austin, Texas. Pat, you're in Canada.
Montreal, Canada, yes.
Yeah. Sonia's in Argentina. Our marketing support, Gia, who's in the background, shout out. She's based in Mexico. And so we really love to support our global community because that's really what the employee experience is now.
1,000%. I feel like we'll need maybe a private airplane maybe one day so that we can kind of foster the connections and become more of a human. Maybe this is how we become more of a human-centric organization. I don't know
QuestionPro jet. I'm sure if the CEO's listening, hello. And I know our CFO is listening. Eric, we have an idea.
This is a terrible idea. It's a bad idea.
We could just put it in the marketing budget now.
Yes, okay.
But we are so glad that you guys have been joining us today. We are not even halfway through our programming, so please don't leave because we are going to be now transitioning to our Work It Life live recording podcast. So the branding is going to change here in a second, so don't be scared away. We've got a lot of good things happening, and so don't leave. We're going to have a countdown and everything because the Work It Life podcast that's hosted on Hubspot Podcast Network is going to be live recorded for everyone. Are you excited, Pat?
Super excited. I've got more blank pages to take some notes on, so let's go.
Ooh, that's good. I was eating my breakfast while Dan was talking, so at least you were probably being a little bit better. But y'all, this is going to be so great, and I'm going to transition us to the next segment. Stay tuned.
Everybody's in. Hello. Oh, this makes me so happy. Welcome, Dr. Candace. Hello, Maddie. Hello, Gia. How are you ladies doing today?
Great. So great. Thank you for having me. I can't wait.
I love it. So for those of us who are just joining us, this is what we're going to do today. It's kind of fun. So as Crystal was just mentioning, Maddie, Gia, and I run a podcast called Work It Life. And we air it about once a week, once every couple of weeks, depending on the season. And we are so lucky to have incredible guests like Dr. Candace Steele Flippin. So what we're going to do today is now the numbers are escaping me, but today there are definitely a lot of podcasts out there and a lot of listeners. And for those who don't run a podcast, but listen to them, might be curious around, well, what happens behind the scenes? How does this actually happen? And so what we wanted to do for XDay today is show you a little bit behind the curtain. So we're going to do a little bit of the intros here. And again, how do we set things up? What happens behind the scenes? And then what we're going to do is we're going to kick off a live recording. And with that, you're going to see this reset, intro music. Maddie's going to introduce who we are. I'll introduce Dr. Candace, and that's going to be actually what will be on the podcast episode when it's aired later today. And then if you're curious about the after, we're going to end the episode and we'll have a little bit of chit chat between all of us. It'll give you an opportunity. So I have, Maddie and I have a lot of questions for Dr. Candace. We were joking
Ready.
that 30 minutes might be a tight one. So we'll squeeze in as many as we can. But obviously for anybody who is listening, who didn't have a chance to, prepare questions with us, please stay on and we can do some live Q&A. And then we'll wrap things up and say our goodbyes. But this is like a little bit of the dynamic intro and then back. So I'll just go through real quick. The one person who I actually want to introduce first that does all this magic behind the scenes, so you haven't seen her face as much, is Guille Santana. So Crystal just mentioned her. There she is. And if you wonder how much goes behind like producing a podcast, it's a lot. it's a lot more than I expected. And yeah, probably even Maddie. So when you think about this, like building the house and, having these like beautiful windows and conversations, like Guille is like our foundation, our everything, our megaphone to the world. And so oftentimes she is in these kinds of sessions, she's behind the scenes and people don't get to see her. She, gets us ready, cues us up, finishes off the episode, does any editing if she needs to, publishes it, does a description, like
social media.
Yes, everything, social media posts. And it's I think sometimes when there's a large volume of this knowledge sharing, people don't realize how much work there is behind it. So we thought this is actually a great opportunity to showcase a little bit around it and showcase Guille, because again, usually she's like the magician in the back who helps us with all the ins and outs and actually makes this possible, because I think between Maddie and I, if we were just on our own, there's no way. And then Maddie has just been a wonderful co-host over the last, almost a year and a half. Yesterday, her Guille and I were talking about next episodes and the different topics. And we were thinking about like the number of different sessions we had. And it's been really incredible. And Maddie will introduce herself a little bit more in the actual podcast, but she's a culture designer. She has a tremendous amount of experience in helping companies build better cultures. Maddie, you've written 3 books. Am I remembering that correctly?
Yes.
Like Dr. Candace, like I can't.
Vanya, we need to get you to write a book.
Yeah.
I would love to. I'm having flashbacks to my dissertation, and that, oh my goodness, like that. I wish I had coffee and water here. I don't have whiskey. Oh my gosh, but maybe Maddie, we'll see. And then Dr. Candace will introduce you obviously more formally in the podcast, and I have your bio here, but we were recently introduced by a mutual friend, and from the first time that I spoke with you, I was just in awe. Oh, and I read your book and we had a couple of conversations, and I just thought, this is somebody that, if we can contribute to giving people more exposure to you and who you are and what you stand for, like it would be such an honor. So I'm getting a little emotional.
Oh, thank you.
But I think that what you're doing and the things and the issues you're bringing up to light in the device, and I think we'll talk all about your book in our episode. But I read it on a flight, and I usually nap on flights. And this was like something like I couldn't let it down. It was so good, and I took so many notes, and that's why we're going to, for everyone who's attending our session, we're going to give away a copy of your book for anybody who's in North America. It'll be a physical signed copy. For all of you, incredible listeners joining us from other places, we'll send you an ebook, where it's challenging to get hard copies. But we just felt so passionately about getting your knowledge and your advice and your very practical advice and very real. Like I felt like I was talking with you when I was reading that book. And I get goosebumps even just saying it. And I had the pleasure of speaking with you. I think it was only maybe once or twice over a Zoom call before. And I could hear your voice and I could hear your heart and soul in it, and all the passion and the challenges and the desire to make a difference. And so this just seemed like a really, really perfect platform to, to bring that back to life, not back, but like bring it to life for those individuals who might not know you yet before you become super duper famous, which I know you will. But just such a pleasure to have you, and thank you so much for your time here today.
I was saying it's my pleasure. Thank you so much. I can't wait.
Oh, well, lovely. So what I'm going to do, real quick, unless Guy, Maddie, is there anything either one of you want to add before what I'm going to do, which is like real life stuff, is hook up my microphone. And Maddie and Guy have seen, so because this is a part of a larger event that we're doing today, I have a challenge because it's like this little thing, having it in front of me, because I'm constantly with water, different things, and I'm like, I'm gonna knock it over, the computer's gonna go. But for the quality of the sound of the podcast, and Maddie's laughing because she knows it's true. Like, this would be like me chasing things all around. I'm going to hook it up now, and we'll do a sound check because it doesn't always work. Sometimes I'm still in AirPods. Sometimes it's all over the place. I've actually turned off my phone, so hopefully the Bluetooth doesn't connect there. But let's see.
Technology.
Yes. All right.
It's funny though,
And
even if you're all set up for a podcast, you always want to check just beforehand. And again. And then things can always also happen, internet cuts out, whatever. So we're just always prepared or just rolling with it.
Oh my goodness. Well, can you hear me?
Yep.
Does it work? Yes. Okay. Because in our, so I was joking with the team earlier. So this morning, before we're getting started for our internal team, I sent everybody a note and I said, listen, maybe you all know this, but I just read somewhere like turn off, restart your computer before we go live, restart your internet router. I've recently got new internet because like my other one was really spotty and it was really not, fun for these kinds of events. And so I was ready to go. And in our last session, I was charging my AirPods because I thought, we have a couple hours of content today. I don't want them to go without battery. And I put them back in and it was doing this horrible feedback. And I was like, oh, you got to be kidding. I've never had this before. I'm like, so I was turning off like my phone. I was resetting. But a part of it is just like, well, we'll talk about Candace. It's like resilience, it'll be okay. I mean, I wish I wasn't doing it in front of potentially hundreds of people, but I will find a way to make sure that this works. All right. So with my microphone, does anybody need to do any preparing before we start to record live?
Nope.
No.
Devices are off.
Thank you. Yes, I even asked our nanny to please have my often rowdy 3.5-year-old in another part of the apartment, or else he would definitely make the podcast. He loves to be heard. All right, everybody. So what's going to happen is we are going to do a countdown, and then we're going to kick off the show as we're going to be recording the podcast. So this podcast is what's going to be made live to the world for downloads. Maddie will introduce the show. I will introduce Dr. Candace, and then we'll start a conversation that's focused on her new book. When we're done, we'll wrap it up, and then we'll stay here. We'll come back just for any questions, comments from anybody that's joined us.
Great.
All right, Gia, do your magic.
Hey. Let's go.
Let's go.
All right. Hello. Welcome, new listeners, or welcome back, regular fans. And today, welcome to the XDay audience. We're doing a special live taping of this show today. So welcome to Work at Life. I'm Maddie Grant. I'm a culture consultant at Propel, and I'm here with my beautiful co-host, Sonia Lucina, president of the Workforce Division at QuestionPro, who is also an organizational psychologist. So just so you know, Work at Life is a show for everyone, whether you're an employee or an employer, who believes that work should be just as fulfilling as life outside of work. This means that we explore a ton of burning topics related to creating more human workplaces. And what's different about our show is that we look at these burning issues through the lens of both the individual and the organization. And of course, we always want you to leave every episode with at least one practical idea to take back with you. And today, I know that you will have many practical ideas because we have a super special guest. So I'm going to let Sonia take it from here to kick us off and introduce our guest.
Thank you, Maddie, and welcome Dr. Candace Steele Flippin to the Work and Life podcast. It's so lovely to have you on.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here, and thank you, Maddie. Good morning, or good afternoon, or good evening, Sonia, depending on where you're watching from.
Yes, thank you. And so today is a special episode. We're lucky that we have a lot of different really brilliant guests. Today's episode is actually going to center around Dr. Candace's new book. So we have a lot of particular questions around, what inspired her to write it, the different takeaways, and we're just so excited because it's a topic about really building your career path, particularly as a woman, and something that Maddie and I had a whole season in our podcast about the first female recession last year when women were hit particularly hard. So this is certainly a topic that's near and dear to our hearts. And Dr. Candace, we got lots of questions for you, but before we jump into those, you just have such an incredible background and such incredible experience. So before we go into the questions, I'd like to a little more formally introduce you and share your bio with everybody, just so they know, as they're hearing our discussion, have a little bit of a glimpse around where that passion comes from, where that expertise comes from. So without further ado, Dr. Candace Steele Flippin is a Senior Vice President and Chief Communications Officer at Acuity Brands, a leading industrial technology company based in Atlanta, Georgia. Since 2016, Dr. Steele Flippin has been a research fellow at the Weatherhead School of Management at Case Western Reserve University. She has authored 3 books, Generation Z in the Workplace, Millennials in the Workplace, and the one we will be discussing today, Get Your Career in Shape. Dr. Steele Flippin was named in 2020 as one of the most influential Black executives in corporate America by Savoy magazine, and has received over 20 communications and public relation awards throughout her career. She has been featured on Forbes, CNBC, CBS, NBC, and Today.com. Well, Dr. Candace, I don't even know what to say.
Thank you.
I am humbled by having you here. And, I read your book just recently after we had met, and I'm a big reader. Like, I'm a researcher, I'm an academic, and I just thought, wow, like it was such an incredible balance between research and facts, but also communicated in such a human way that I really felt that as I was reading it, that somehow you knew me and you knew me forever. And that I just, I thought, wow, like I was taking notes and I was highlighting different things. And I just thought this is a brilliant set of advice, but also communicated in such a way that felt really approachable, that didn't feel intimidating, but made me excited to say, okay, like I realize now the areas that I'm strong in, and I realize the areas that I really need to address. And so, as I mentioned, this wasn't your first book. Like, what inspired you to write about this topic today?
I don't know how many folks who are listening are women or have women in their lives, but throughout my career, I've had so many conversations with women who wanted more in their careers. And some of us have moved on like this. Some of us have done this. Some of us have, stalled and stopped, and some of us have gotten stuck. And I believe that when you can bring women to a conversation and decision, it's going to be better and more robust. And so I just wanted to create a path for millions of women, millions of more women to get the careers that they need, they want, and they deserve.
Yeah. And what I think that is so incredibly relevant in any time, but I think now when we're at such crossroads with the impact that the pandemic has had, and we'll talk about that a little bit more later. I feel like I imagine knowing how long it takes to write a book that you probably started it before all of that chaos
Yeah.
ensued. But it is probably, even more impactful and relevant today than even, when you first started thinking about it. So really
Yes.
great timing. And so the book is called Get Your Career in Shape, but I was, joking with you before, like shape is in all capital letters, and it's, sometimes we use it to like shout it off the rooftops. But actually, those are acronyms for
That's
different
right.
things that you cover in the book. Would you tell us a little bit more about what each one stands for and why you found them important?
Yeah, so I did a study that has over 2,000 women in it, and I started it before the pandemic, and then I had to continue with more research to make sure I was capturing the full experience of women as we go through this pandemic. And what I did was I asked them a series of questions about their life, decisions around their career, their hopes, their dreams, things they could have done differently. And then I took all those data points and coded them to see what themes were emerging. And I also asked them additional questions about how they behave in work. And based on all of those data points, thousands and thousands of data points, I found 5 themes. And those 5 themes make up shape. And the first one is S, which stands for save. And what that really speaks to is having a strong financial foundation. I learned throughout my research that women who don't believe that they have a strong financial foundation won't take a risk. And that is because women in the United States are the primary breadwinners in their household. Over 50% of women are the primary breadwinners in their household. And if they are not the primary breadwinners, they are a significant contributor to the success of their household. And so since so much depends on them, they don't want to take a risk if something were to happen, if they take this promotion or this new job and they lose that financial standing. So the first one is about creating a strong financial foundation so that when an opportunity comes, you'll raise your hand because you won't have that at the back of your mind in terms of what you need to do for your family. The second one is around hard work. And it's not a mystery that if you want to be successful or achieve success, that you're going to work hard. No one's disputing that. I'm not disputing that. But what I learned in my research is that there was a disconnect with women in terms of the expectations around what hard work meant. So see if this sounds familiar. Maybe you've heard this before. You're talking to a friend. She's talked about how hard she's working, the hours she's putting in, the way she's raising her hand to take on more assignments. And when a promotion comes, it goes to someone else. Maybe someone who has less experience, maybe someone who is newer to the company. And she's scratching her head trying to figure out how that happened. And what I've come to appreciate and what I talk about in the book is that hard work is actually subjective. And the most important thing to do is to be aligned with the person who is evaluating your performance. Number 3, advocate for yourself. Women, for a lot of reasons, we will not speak up. Now, I'm not suggesting that you speak up just to be heard, but there's so many times when women can bring valuable perspective to a conversation and they won't negotiate for the types of benefits or salaries or opportunities that they want. And by not learning these crucial negotiation skills and getting comfortable with it, we lose out on opportunity. In fact, I've seen studies that show from a financial perspective, over a lifetime, a woman could lose $1 million or more in wealth just because of pay disparity. So it's so important that women learn how to advocate for ourselves and practice that if it's something that's uncomfortable for you so that you find your voice. Number 4 in shape is P, persevere. I like to say, and you mentioned this earlier, Tanya, there are going to be highs in people's careers. Things are just going to go great. And then there are going to be moments, those low moments where things won't go well. And we have a choice to make when those things happen. And sometimes women, we choose to step away and we don't persevere and learn how to have people around us who can fortify us, support us, so that we can go through those lows where we get the best learning and skill building techniques so that we can move forward. The second part of persevering is also knowing when to leave. So we can be really committed and loyal as a gender, sometimes to our detriment. And so a good part of persevering is knowing how to ride the highs and the lows, but also knowing when to step away. And then finally, throughout my research, women said that oftentimes they don't feel prepared to take on a new opportunity because they don't have the educational or training background. So see if this sounds familiar to you. There's a male and a female, and they're looking at an opportunity. And the man looks at the opportunity, he goes, oh, great, I'm raising my hand, I'm going to apply for that job, whether or not he has any of the qualifications. Mm-hmm. Whereas a woman will look at that opportunity and say, oh, they're asking for 5 years. I only have 4 years and 360 days. I'm not going to apply. Or, I think
we're all very familiar with this scenario.
Right. And so what I propose is that we become and learn how to be lifelong learners and being open to educating ourselves and getting support systems so that we can take those on and recognize that if you are a lifelong learner, if there's some new requirement that you need, because you've changed your mindset that you will learn, you'll feel more confident when an opportunity comes and maybe all the requirements aren't quite there, but you say, well, you know what? I'm a quick study, or I can learn, or I have a support system or whatever I need to get through it. So just because I only have 3 years and 360 days, I'm not going to let that hold me back. So that's Shay.
Oh, thank you. And I'm looking and thinking through all my notes and everything that I took. And so thank you for giving us that overview. And now we'll deep dive into as many points as time allows.
Great.
One thing that I was thinking through. So I don't know. Am I midway through my career? I don't know. We'll see. Time will tell. But I'm certainly not just out of school, and I have some years under my belt. And so that's the hat that I had on as I was reading this book. So obviously, depending on maybe their age, maybe where they are in their career, different people who are reading your book will internalize things differently. Right. One thing that related to S, so kind of going almost through the different letters in chronological shape, that really jumped out at me as something that I know I can greatly improve is what you talked about. Self-efficacy is increased when you take control of your financial foundation. Now, because of my history, and for those of who know me, know that I was born and raised in former Yugoslavia. My family left because of the war. So I've been a huge saver. Like my entire life, I'm like, how much money do I have in my bank account? So that's a positive, right? However, the negative, or my big developmental opportunity, is that I've always been very diligent to see, a physician for my routine checkups every year, to go see a dentist, get my cleaning and all of that done. These, things that are good for your well-being. Financial advisor, like, no way. Like, I always considered it myself as like, well, do I have enough assets? Do I have enough money? If I just put money in the bank, is that okay? And then when I actually started to talk to people about it, they're like, get your money out of the bank. You're getting a 2% increase a year. I'm like, I know, but if I need it, why would you need all that money? So for somebody that's been very diligent, usually about finances, or I thought so, that was really a huge opportunity. And you mentioned a few really staggering stats about how many women actually are financially responsible for their families. And a lot of times maybe people wouldn't think that, because we know the pay disparity that generally happens between men and women. And in your book, you also have a quote here with a couple of stats. Today's women are experiencing unique challenges to attaining financial confidence, including fewer women with earning power. So in 2013, 60% of women had earning power. In 2019, this number had dropped to 38%. So when we talk about the importance, like, again, we mentally think maybe it's important to go to a health professional, but we're not seeking as much advice for our finances. Do you know what the barrier to that is? Like, is it just lack of awareness? Is it lack of, like, how, for somebody that's thinking about this, like, how can we almost make a ripple effect for women to feel like, yes, I'm in a position, or who do I go for? So maybe understanding the little bit around, like, why is this not happening? more proactively, like how could we spread the knowledge to other women to engage in that more on more regular basis, or at least sometimes?
So the first thing I would say is, be okay with once you get the knowledge and then doing something doing something with that knowledge. I will tell you, early in my career, I was probably 23 years old, and I learned that the company that I had like a 401k type program. So I go into the HR office and I'm like, "Hi, I'm Candace Steele. I want to sign up for our program." And he says to me, "Oh, Candy, you're just 23. You're going to get married and a man's going to take care of you. You don't have to do anything about that. And plus we have this pension. Just spend your money. You don't even make that much anyway." And, and I'm just like, okay. And I walked away. And so that was my opportunity where I tried to do something and I was blocked. And lots of women are blocked. They're told these myths that someone else is going to take care of you, so you don't have to worry about that. Luckily for me, his assistant, who was getting ready to retire, overheard that conversation and came back to my cube later that day. And she goes, "Oh, he never does that to the men." And she gave me the paperwork so that I could start saving. And so some women get barriers to saving, whether it's, in my case, extreme at work by the HR person, or someone in your family, your life. They'll say you're just starting out, or you're going through a divorce, or maybe you need to wait because you're saving for other things. The first thing we could do is let women know that you deserve to have good financial literacy, and there are free ways that you can do it. And there are ways that will make a difference for you. The other thing is, personally, it can be overwhelming, because if you feel that you're in a good place, like for you, your life experience, Sonia, taught you that it was important to save. That was outstanding. But it never occurred to you maybe that there are professionals out there that maybe could help you learn more tools that are at your disposal. And so the best thing I can say is, if there's a woman in your life, have that conversation with her to say, how sure are you that your financial future is as secure as you can make it? And are there resources available to you, whether free or otherwise, that you can at least have a conversation, take an online quiz, do something to make sure you're set up well for now and in the future. And if you work for an employer that offers these, set up an appointment so that you could do it. So the very first thing I would say is, let women know we deserve these things and encourage them to pursue them, because it's good for them, their families, and their futures.
I actually have an interesting comment or thought just listening to you, which is that for me personally, so I'm the opposite of Sonia. I'm like, you can't take it with you. So I never have any money. It's horrible. However,
that was me in my 20s.
Yeah. What I realized is that I actually know I have good financial literacy when it comes to my business as an entrepreneur. And just even in work, before I had my own business, I knew how to do a budget, for my department or whatever, but it never clicked that I should be doing that kind of thing for myself at home, and I mean, I know a budget is a really obvious thing that most people should have, and I do now, but like, they're so completely separate. Like, this is a good example of the work and life, like in our minds it's completely separate, but in actual fact, we need to apply like skills in both directions, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. And I get it. There's so much in your day, right? There's just so much in your day in your life that you have going on. And if you're feeling pretty much comfortable, it's easy not to look at foundational things. And this research is all about what are those foundational things that women should be paying attention to set us up well for success.
Yeah. And so based on our conversation, to me, what's kind of coming to mind, a big part is like even just awareness, and what you're doing now, talking about it. Because then, depending on where somebody is in their career, they say, well, wait a minute, if I'm hearing about this on repeated basis, probably means I should spend a little more time thinking about it. And again, I think it's just because maybe it's not, when women get together, it's not often a topic of conversation. Like, I know a lot of times we'll talk about, like, depending on, like what diapers are you using? And does your kid have a rash? And, do I put it like different things that are also very important. But I think this is, and maybe it's because sometimes like money is still kind of thought about as taboo. And so like, don't want to tell, but like if I mention this, do people like, are they going to think I make a certain amount of money? But I think going back to what you're saying, just the foundational, like it impacts so many parts of our life, but it impacts our confidence and it impacts our ability to raise our hand and say, I'm willing to take a chance on this. And I also think, to some of your earlier points, a lot of times for women to go up for a position or raise their hand, objectively, it's lost less of a chance than what they think it is.
Right.
But because they're not used to it, their nervousness is there. And I know in your book, you talk a lot about, taking some risks in almost like less, it wasn't less stakes, when there are fewer stakes in place to get yourself trained on it,
Right,
and to get
exactly.
yourself to know like, wow, I succeeded at this and I didn't think I would, or you know what, I didn't, but I'm still okay. I'm glad I raised my hand. I learned a lot from it. And that actually brings me to another point that I read that, really resonated, is the where you were talking about working smarter and not necessarily harder. And I had huge luck, I think, at the beginning of my career, that one of my first leaders really instilled that in me. And I think she saw at that time I was a young PhD. And in my mind, it was literally like, put your head down and just work, 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 and good things will come to you. And I didn't, like, I was a researcher. Like, you get your PhD and you basically get a list of things for how you succeed. You do this, you do this, you do this research. These are the steps. And if you work hard and you follow that formula, eventually, more than likely, you'll get your PhD. And then you go out in this world and there's networking and there's like, it's anything but like a straight path. And like, what do you do? And so she was really good at, not only being my leader, but also my coach, and taking me and saying, okay, this is where you need to be diligent, but here are some of the things that you might not be used to doing that are going to be really, really important for your career, for what I understand it is that you want to do. And that, that circles back to your conversation with really being clear with your leader what your aspirations are, because if you're not, they probably won't guess, not because they don't want to, but it's really not their job. Like, their job is to support you and grow you, but that two-way dialogue makes it a lot more effective in getting the support and the coaching that you need. And so what would be some advice that you would have for people, particularly women, that maybe like need to take a step back and say, am I working hard or smart or both? Or like, what am I doing here? Like, what are some of the things maybe they could ask themselves to make sure that they're taking those right steps to achieve what they want to achieve in their career?
Right. So the first question is a simple one, but can be really difficult for a lot of women. Am I and my boss on the same page about my work? Have I sat down with my boss on a regular basis and asked the questions, how am I doing? Is there anything I should is there anything I should stop doing? Is there anything I should stop doing? How do you view the quality of my work? And then maybe walk them through a few of the things that you're working on to say, do you have any suggestions of how this could be stronger or better? So that's the one thing, that alignment. And I'll give you a couple of examples. There is a woman who I used to work with, and she wanted to impress her boss. And so the requirement was a 2-page executive summary. That was all that was needed. But she would spend hours and hours of putting these 30-page documents together, one, that no one had time to read and no one would be reading. And it was a total waste of her time. And so she wasn't working smart. And so it's really important that you ask yourself, am I working on the right things? Like, am I meeting the requirement? And before I go and do all this extra work, when do I have the time to do it? Is it happening at the expense of something else? And is it going to be appreciated and needed? And if it's not, then I think it's important for us to step back and not look at our pride and ego and just do that one thing really, really well, and then go do something different. And then the other thing is just being really honest with yourself about how you're delivering. And the reason why I say that is, we like to be supportive of ourselves, right? And think that we're doing really, really great work. But if we don't ever ask, how do you really know? And so one of the best ways is, you know what you're doing, but to take that step. So if it's not your manager, maybe it's a peer or a mentor or a coach, just to make sure that you are level set. And then the last thing I'll say is, if you are burnt out on something, do you have the right resources to make yourself successful? And can you raise your hand to ask for more resources? So we like to be the hero, right? We're going to stay up all night and work all weekend and do it. That's not necessarily working smart. If the requirements of the role dictate that there needs to be resources, at the very least, you should ask for them with a compelling argument to get them, as opposed to just taking it for the team. Because here's the deal. If you do that and you do it repeatedly, they will allow you to keep doing it. And then you'll find yourself weeks and months later, wiped out, exhausted. And because if women, we don't complain, no one knows there's a problem. And so working smart is also being honest about, can you really do this? And do you have the resources available so that you can do it well? And have you asked? Now, if they say no, that's a different topic, and that's persevere. But for this, it's really about being honest with yourself and not necessarily having that Shiro syndrome where you can just, work yourself into the ground if resources are available, or even worse, resources are available and you say no. That happens a lot with women.
I know.
Oh, I'm fine.
I can still do it. Yeah.
Oh yeah. And I have this mountain on my back. Go ahead and put a Mack truck on it. It's okay. Yeah. I'm happy to do. I'm a team player. Get the help if it's offered. Say yes.
Yeah. No, I think that's really great advice. And in my mind, it's almost like the next step of like knowing when to say no to something. So like there was, glorified of like, yes, I can do everything, but that doesn't necessarily make you more effective. And more often than not, it can distract you from things that can be really impactful and that can really get you noticed. But I think still in many cases that overwork can be glorified. And I'm very hopeful that that's on the way out with, Ariana Huffington some years ago being very vocal about the need for sleep and about how many more conversations we're having today about burnout. Unfortunately, I don't think it's still normalized everywhere. I think there's still work to do. But I'm hopeful that people as they're more exposed to that information, they're realizing that approach that maybe was, popular 10 years ago, that we're becoming more human and that we're understanding that people need different things and that, this isn't the be all and end all. I'm looking at all the questions. Sorry.
I want to add one more tip that a male shared with me recently. We were talking about my book, and he goes, I just never really had that problem. And I'm like, really? How did you manage that? He goes, oh, I have this go-to phrase. I'm like, do share. He goes, just don't have the bandwidth. Love to do it, just don't have the bandwidth. That's what men say. Love to do it, just don't have the bandwidth. And then they leave it at that. And then
and that's it. That's like, okay, well, you don't. Like,
everybody write that down.
Love to do it, just don't have the bandwidth.
Just right now, check back again, maybe in a month, maybe there'll be more bandwidth. But I think that is so important, and it's understanding of that capacity, and for us to have the confidence, I guess, maybe the be able to introspect and understand what is the bandwidth that I have, and then two, what it is that I have, how do I spend it? And for me, I always talk about how my personal tipping points, I was very much, one of those people early in my career that worked in the evening, stayed at the office late, very often worked on the week. Yeah, like, right? Like a lot of us have been there, so we can speak from experience. Yes. And for me, in some ways, the tipping point was a little bit before I had my son. But I said, I think it was when I moved to Argentina, and I said I made a very personal decision for what I wanted in my life. And if I let my professional life overtake that, what's the point of, taking that leap of faith on my personal end? And then when my son was born, it became much easier for me to say, hey, it's 6:00, our nanny's leaving, and I'm going to go spend time with Mateo. Like, I had him for a reason. But the thing is that I'm hopeful is for people who are on my team, for people who talk with me, who know me, not to take that as like, oh, okay, well, I guess I have to wait to have a kid to do that. It's like, no. for me, that was a tipping point. And I think it was also at the time that we started to talk more about burnout and we started to talk more about different priorities. But like, I would never expect, like, oh, you don't have a kid, so you can work at night. Like, no, like, there are a million things in life you can do other than taking care of a child. Go live it up, do it all. And if one day, if you have a kid, hurry and do it more now. But one day, if you don't have a kid, it's still okay. Like, it's your life, and do what you want. And it's not
Absolutely.
like, sometimes people are really passionate about their job and they want to put in extra work, and that's okay. If that's the right decision for them. But I think
Right.
each one of us needs to have the right decision. And one more thing I wanted to touch on, with the time we have, is you talk about advocating for yourself. And wow, do I feel like that's really important. And I actually did my dissertation on impression management and the way women present themselves in the workplace. So that's very near and dear to my heart. One of the things, and I don't expect you to really have an answer here because I know it's very new, but even maybe just, your opinion, is I've been reading more and more about what's going to happen in the hybrid workplace. And that, we're seeing some statistics that women are the ones more likely to opt out to work remotely, and that women are the ones who are maybe going to do hybrid. And now, if we know that before the pandemic, women had a greater challenge of advocating for themselves, what happens now? Like, how do women actively and effectively do that when maybe their face is not always going to be visible around the office, but their impact will be the same or maybe greater than what it was before?
So the first thing that I've seen in my research over the past year and a half through the pandemic, really focusing on how work is changing and what women want. And I often ask a series of questions, and I'll ask women to rank them or show their preference. And what I've come to appreciate is women like the option for remote work. Most people do, but what they prefer is flexibility. They'll trade off remote work for flexibility. And what I believe will need to happen is we just need to be more intentional about advocating for ourselves. So in the past, maybe walk into your manager's office. Now you're scheduling some time for a Zoom call, but the conversation still needs to take place, right? So all the steps in terms of being aligned, articulating what you want, sharing your point of view, disagreeing if you do not agree, and doing it in the best way possible, those things still happen. So what women need to do is just really make sure they are intentional. If you're on a call, keep your camera on to be visible, still communicate. If it's a type of call where it's a lot of people and it doesn't make sense to keep the camera on, make sure you're showing up in the chat, after the fact, using the tools and resources that are available, raising your hand to lead the team so that you have the visibility. But really, your best champion is going to be your manager. And so I feel that women just need to continue to have the intentionality, but use the technology to make sure that they're present and that they're showing up. And then the other thing is to be honest about what they're going through. I believe that we need more grace given everything that we've learned, these past over 2 years. And we also need to be able to have more empathy. And, it's not unreasonable, given everything that we've gone through, to be able to have a conversation with your manager and your team to say, listen, here is what I'm going through, and this is the support that I need, and to ask for it. And hopefully you're in an environment where you can do your best work in your team and your manager is going to support you. And we just don't know what's going to happen. I mean, we're optimistic. Maybe in some communities, the mask can come off because the vaccination rates are high and the infection rates are low. And people are practicing good hygiene or whatever the case may be. But there are going to be moments when we get to go back in, and times we can. And if you have people in your home that you have to care for and you have to step back and things change, those are the moments of grace. And so what I would say is, if you need that grace and empathy, be comfortable about asking for it. I think that we sometimes suffer in silence. And the other thing I will say is, I enjoyed all that extra work I was doing when I was coming through my career. I had fascinating work. I liked my team. I didn't have a family, so, my work blended and it was great. But also, if I'm honest, I think I had a certain amount of fear that I could not say no, because I was really afraid that if I said no, somehow it would adversely impact me.
Yeah.
It was really in my 30s when my mentor said, why don't you just say no to that? Sounds like you got a lot on your plate. I'm like, well, I could never say no because this is going to happen, like a long list and my bonus will be low. Like they'll see I'm not here. And a lot of women aren't coached to say no. And I think that's also a big part of it. And so I would just say that women need to have a lot of intentionality, really try to push to get the flexibility that you need to make your work and life work and still meet the demands of your organization, and to give the grace, ask for the grace, and bring empathy to the dialogue. And if you're managing women, you work with women are in your life, people identify as female in your life or women in your life, give the grace and the empathy, because at the end of the day, we're human. And that dynamic, even though we're going to produce and deliver for our organizations, there are people, humans, who are at the end of that. And we need that grace and empathy. And now more than ever. And if you do that, you can retain your talent. So you're not paying that 30% of whatever that salary is to try to attract someone new. You have more productive workforce. We learned through the pandemic that productivity at home is not an issue for most businesses. Exactly. And so now we have to think about the issues of wellness and mental health, and making sure that you have someone who has taken care of herself so that she can do what she needs to do for you and her team.
I love it. And actually, so believe it or not, we're totally at time, which always happens. Just when we're getting really into it. And I think what you just said is like a perfect way to close out our conversation. I would just sort of ping off of that and just say there is a window of opportunity right now that people understand, organizations understand how important empathy is. So if you're, like Candace was saying, if you're in a position to be able to ask for help or say no to something, like now's the time to try it out, right? Sonia, do you have anything else you want to say before we hit our little...
I have more questions, but I won't do it. We'll leave those for offline, but no, just Candace, thank you. Thank you so much again for this incredible book. Again, it's called Get Your Career in Shape, for somebody who maybe didn't write it down at the beginning of the podcast. I think it's brilliant. I think it's full of really great advice. Thank you for your time today. Thank you for all the additional insights that you shared with us. I think anyone who reads this book will certainly get many insights from it. So I'm very hopeful again that for those of our listeners who haven't had a chance to read it yet, but are, intrigued and impressed by some of the things that we talked about today, that they'll pick it up. So incredibly grateful for your time and for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much. Bye, everybody. Oh, we do the little dance at the end.
We caught Maddie doing her dance.
Awesome. That was great.
Oh, well, thank you so much. And Guy, if you want to come back, you can join his girlfriend. I don't know where she's there. She is. There she is.
Thank you.
No, I mean, this should have been like chapter 1, chapter 2, chapter 3. Like I was looking through and I'm like, we can ask people, about like you were mentioning, like, what would be the practical advice? The one thing I do want to mention, because again, as a reminder for everybody who's watching us live, is you do get a free copy of Dr. Candace's book if you joined us here for XDay. And in there, Candace, you talk about like each chapter has like a red, yellow, and green section. And what do those mean? How can somebody really like, I love it because it's also like, it's practical chapters, but then it's like this really like introspective way to end. So if you can tell us a little bit more about that, that would be fantastic.
So I wanted to write the book for where women were in their life, their career, and their life stage. And it could be really overwhelming. Like we had 2 great examples from Maddie and Sonia, like where you are and what you're focusing on. And so at the end of the book, I have these red, yellow, and green career zones with about 10 questions that you can ask yourself to see how you can move along a trajectory to get to where you need to be. And so there's simple questions like, I don't know what financial literacy is. I am saving a certain amount. I've saved more than this amount. And so you can just kind of follow that to get a sense of where you are in a way that's comfortable for you, so that you get a good sense of where you want to start. But more importantly, what do you do next?
Yeah. And I love that. And I know when we spoke before, you were mentioning that a lot of times like it can be fluid too, and that it's not
Yes.
necessarily about, being in the green for all of it, but understanding what is your priority, that sometimes you can be in the green and you can go back.
Absolutely.
But I think it's like it really gave like very concrete examples around like, okay, how am I doing in this area? And then
Right.
of course, like anything in life, and I didn't even have a chance to ask you about like you talked about the myth of having it all. And I was just recently at a conference and there's so much talk about
Oh
well-being,
my
and for people to like not walk away thinking I've got to be perfect at everything, because there's a whole other set of books about like not striving for perfection and why it's mentally important not to do that. So I think that this outlines really well like
Thank
where you
you.
can be and the path.
There's so much pressure on women. I'm a Generation X. Yay, Generation X. We never get
Yay.
enough attention. I always say we're like the Jan Brady of the generation conversation, with Marsha being the Gen X, the millennials and the baby boomers, and now the Gen Z. But there was this commercial when I was growing up, and it was this woman holding a baby, and she was like, I could bring home the bacon, fry it up in the pan, and never ever let you forget you're a man like Anjali. And it was basically this assertion that women can and should do it all. And actually, there are trade-offs to those decisions. You can, but at what cost? And so what I really wanted to encourage women to do is be intentional about the choices that you make and the trade-offs, and making sure you're having the crucial conversation so that you get support. And at any decision that you make, it's okay. If you decide that you want to lean completely into your career to the expense of everything else, and you have that conversation, great. If you want to step back from your career and raise your family and then reemerge sometime later, great. If you want to say, you know what, I've been doing this, now I want to be an entrepreneur, great. Just know that, having it all is a myth, and it's hard. And I think it's unfair and unreasonable that women have that cast on us, because it sets us up for failure.
Oh, I couldn't agree more. I couldn't agree more. And I hope everybody listening like really internalizes it. I think women for themselves, I think men for like I constantly have that discussion with my partner. And I think like he's like the most even keel probably person that I've ever met. Which I'm like, how do I become more like you? But I also like I share things with him around the pressures that I feel, and I try to be very transparent about that so he knows what I'm going through. And then we work on negotiating, like how can he support me, how can he maybe talk me out of like, Sonia, you don't like, it's okay, like this doesn't have to be at this level, like maybe we avoid the word perfect. I'm like, well, that's not perfect. Okay, well, it's one step down. It doesn't have to be one step down either. But a lot of times I think if you have a good network of friends, a good partner, like people that can really support you, you can have those discussions,
Right.
and realize like how do you really effectively negotiate that. And it's, at least in my experience, it's something that's definitely ongoing. It's not something where like you make peace with something or you're okay where you are and like that's it. It's a work in progress. Like for me, one day
Yes.
I'm okay, and the next day I'm like, wait a minute. Like,
Or-
no, Sonia.
Or that we can actually change our minds. Just because on Monday, this is important to us, a year from now on Monday, it may be different. We can change our mind. There's so much pressure on women. Like, how many times have you said, well, where did that come from? How do you know you can do that? Like, we're not given permission to focus on what we want or deserve. It's only like, we can only carve out our needs. And I hope that one of my messages that women get is I get to choose. I get to choose how I manage my career. And I don't have to be shamed for choosing a career or choosing home or hybrid. It's my choice. I'm setting myself up for success based on how success looks for me and my circumstance.
Absolutely.
And if I change my mind, that's okay too.
The woman's prerogative to change her mind.
Yeah, everybody is women's, men's, whatever, in between, all of it. All
Absolutely.
of it. We grow and evolve. That's the beauty of life.
Yes.
Like you always stay the same, like, what's the point? Well, thank you. It's just been like such a pleasure to talk with you today. I'm so excited for everybody that's going to get to read your book and listen to your insights here. Thank you again for spending time with us. Thank you for bringing all this knowledge and this book into the world. And I'll certainly be in touch with you soon. I'm sure we'll pop in the comments what's the best place if somebody wanted to connect with you, maybe have another conversation?
Oh, absolutely. So you can follow me on LinkedIn at CandaceSteeleFlippin.com. You can follow me on Instagram at Dr.Candace Official. You can go to my website, CandaceSteeleFlippin.com, or, if they circle back with you, Sonia, you'll put me in contact.
I absolutely will.
Really
I absolutely
excited
will.
to stay in touch.
A million thanks again, Dr. Candace. Maddie, thank you for another amazing podcast episode. Guille, thank you for all the magic, always. It was amazing to see your face today, in addition to all your brilliance behind the scenes. And ladies, a huge hug and have a wonderful rest of the day. And we'll see you all soon.
Thank you so much.
Bye.
Take care.
Oh, no, I'm sorry, Candace. Every time, man, I think I get it. Patrick.
I love it. I love it.
Wow.
Oh my God. What a talk, right?
I know. Okay. Top favorite takeaway.
On this talk or the previous one?
Ooh.
On this one, for me, it's the notion of choice.
Right.
That everyone should be allowed to just make the choices they want and not feel bad about it. Like, it's so liberating. And it was great to hear these women talk about that topic.
Yeah, it is. I think, I grew up in a pretty traditional, like Midwest Kansas, like dad worked 9 to 5, dinner was on the table at 5:15 kind of family. And when I hit high school, my mom kind of threw it all out the window. She's like, I'm done. I'm 50. I'm calling it a day. And,
That's
that
amazing.
really, both these talks really gave me a lot of respect for her. Like, she worked at the same hospital for 45 years.
Wow.
And then was like, you know what? I want to do other things. And now is like living overseas, like having a whole second career, like in her 70s.
What?
Yeah.
Oh my God. Life goals right there. This
right.
is
I
amazing.
know. Just like random people from Kansas being like, okay, bye.
Peace out. I'm going to, Toscana, like in Italy. I'm going to learn to do pasta or like paint or whatever.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
It's definitely been, never think that your life is over. Like they like really like never retire, I guess is the word, right? Like you're always going to be learning. You're always going to be growing. So yeah, so good, man. Well, if you guys have been with us today, we are so grateful that you have joined us for QuestionPro Spring XDay Workforce Wednesday. And get your afternoon pick-me-up. I know in the comments, I'm not going to flash the QR code again because we've had some nefarious players.
Oh,
but if you click on the link in the comments, you can get a Starbucks pick-me-up this afternoon. This is mine. It's all gone. I'll have to go get one later for, my afternoon wrap-up. But make sure you get that. Also, make sure you get a copy of Candace's book, because we are giving away a copy. Just scan that QR code, this one. Scan that QR code and you will get a free signed copy of Candace's book. If you're in North America, if you're overseas, we will get you a Kindle digital copy somewhere. Patrick, you might not get one because you work here.
It's okay. It's okay. I'll find a way to get my hands on one. Don't worry.
Right. Just like yesterday, someone who worked here won the live poll. And I was like, thanks for participating. I love you. That's all you said.
I love how you have a very positive way of framing it. I love it.
It's all those years at working at Starbucks being like, oh, your drink's too hot. Sorry. Bye. So, we love everyone who's joining us. And, now you get to have your time to shine.
Oh, amazing.
Right? We're getting ready to start our next session, which is going to be the Leadership Spotlight, where you and Sonia are going to be talking about 360 and doing a little bit of a demo, is what a little birdie told me.
Yeah, we'll have a conversation about how to best support leaders in an organization. And this will lead into a little bit of a very high level, 10-minute, no fluff demo of a tool that we've created internally here. So looking forward to it.
That's amazing. Well, I'm going to twirl us in, or twirl me out, twirl Sonia in, and I will talk to you in about 30 minutes.
Amazing. Thanks. Hello. I think you're muted.
Hey, Pat.
Hey.
I sure was. I have a stuffy nose, so I was
Oh
blowing my nose
no.
in between segments, and I hopefully I muted during that. I realized, like, between my mics and things, I was like, I don't know. But it's good to see you. I've been seeing you on and off, but we have actually not been on the same screen yet. Like, we've been
Absolutely.
kind of flipping in and out. Now we get to almost close out, not completely close out, because I know Gia and Candace will be doing the wellness giveaway and then. So all of you
Oh,
still
nice.
around, make sure to stick around for the giveaway after Pat and I are done. But I'm so excited to talk about our topic because, like you mentioned, it is leadership and it's supporting leaders in today's environment. We're
Mm.
gonna probably keep the session to about 30 minutes, although this is something that we could talk about, I think, for hours on end. But for those of you who have hung out with us for the entire day today, we're so glad that you're still here. We're so glad to share this time with you. I'm going to jump in. I'm going to share my screen now. Let me see. I'm no stranger to sharing screens on StreamYard, but I'm also no stranger to weird things happening with technology. So you'll be my wingman to
Let's
tell
see.
me if I can do this okay. So let's say share screen. Okay, it's giving me some tips. All right.
By the
Chrome
way,
tab.
you talk about me being your wingman. I saw Top Gun 2 yesterday. I recommend. 2 thumbs up. It's really good. It's really good.
It's really funny because I think I saw that on your Instagram. And funny enough,
Mhm.
Martine went 2 days ago when he was on
Really?
a
Like,
business trip, and he's like, I don't know if you're gonna go with me, so I'm just gonna go on my own because his dad is a pilot. And he's like, I
oh
know this movie
wow.
by heart from childhood, so I have to go check it out.
Likewise.
Yeah,
Wow. Yeah.
I can imagine. I might say I don't remember like now last time I've been in a theater. I gotta go back. But thumbs up, you really
Really
enjoyed it?
good. Yeah, especially if you like the first one. They found a way to basically make the OG original gangster fans happy, and then bring in a wider audience. They did a good job.
I love it. Well, somehow I feel like with Martine, and while Mateo's still little, 3.5, he probably won't get it. But somehow I feel like this will be a big part of my life in the future. So if I
Probably.
don't catch it in the theaters, I have a feeling it'll be kind of like maybe the next iteration of Encanto, which we've seen probably
Oh.
at least 100 times. Thanks to
Uh-huh.
Mateo, it's brilliant. It's brilliant, but I definitely know it by heart and all about Bruno and everybody else. So I'm glad
Love
you
it.
enjoyed
Hmm.
it. All right, so let me see if I click. Hold on. Ah, there we are.
You got
Are we
it.
doing this?
Okay.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. I
Happening.
think I'll have to flip to the other one to move my slides along. Hold on one. Oh, that's not it. This one. Am I moving? Am I moving? Yes.
Yeah, you are. You are.
Okay. Beautiful. Okay, so I'll get us started. Like Crystal was mentioning, we'll talk a little bit about leadership, and then Pat's going to show you some of what we've been up to from a technology standpoint and actually, walking our talk and supporting leaders and helping them grow and develop. So um, I've talked a lot. I feel like I'm like a record, but I feel so passionately about it, around what's been going on during the pandemic. And I think that it's been just such an incredible time for people, an incredible time for reflection, incredible time for change. It's been really hard and challenging in many ways. It's been good in other ways. It's just this big mix of things. Now, as an organizational psychologist, I've also been called to speak on different panels, join different groups, and talk about mental health and well being. And there's something that really jumped out at me in a session that I was in last year where kind of the unanimous voice was that managers are really responsible for helping employees with their mental health and the different challenges. And I thought, whew, in theory, I couldn't agree with that more. In practice, are we actually helping managers and are we actually providing them the support, the education, the skills that they need to fill that huge and incredibly important role? And
Mm.
I thought as somebody, I'm an organizational psychologist, as I mentioned that, and I'm very transparent. I share very often with people about how I'm feeling. I try to create a space for people to be very open, and oftentimes they are, which is brilliant. But over time, I've certainly found myself in situations where I'm like, wow, I don't know how to help. And I don't know what the right answer is here. And maybe it's not always about the answer, but I certainly felt like, I need to find a way to be better equipped. And so this is a recent Harvard Business Review article that says managers can do it all. And it very much talks about these, changing priorities of what managers and leaders are expected to do. And how do we handle that? How do we prioritize? What is the role of the manager? And if it's going to be even bigger, which in some ways it could be beautiful, how can we make sure that they're successful? And so another McKinsey study that was quoted in that said that having good relationships with their managers is the top factor in employees' job satisfaction, top factor, which in turn is the second most important determinant of their overall well-being. So no pressure. We've heard probably over the last decade or more that, people don't leave bad companies, they leave bad managers. But now we're upping the stakes to say
Yeah.
not only are they going to leave, but if they're there, it's actually going to have impact and satisfaction and their well-being. And well-being is, one of the most important factors that we talk about. I was just at the Josh Bersin Irresistible conference 2 weeks ago in LA, and it was incredible to me how many HR leaders, how many CHROs talked about that being a priority in their organization. It was just absolutely huge. And so again, now we're seeing the huge role the managers play on that. And again, brilliant if we as organizations can find the right way to support them. Are we finding the right way to support them? Well, another study, because I'm a researcher and I love data, and every one of my opinions I want to back up with facts, is that there was actually a recent study by Gartner where they asked HR leaders from companies how their managers were doing, and 68% reported that they're overwhelmed. So are we in the place that this, additional expectation of managers, this, is it the quote from Batman, Spider-Man, with great power comes great responsibility. But how do we make sure that people are willing to step up to that challenge? And I think for most people that I've talked with, it's not, again, necessarily that they don't want their role, but they're just questioning, how do I do this effectively? And then I think the final article that I'll share, maybe I'm wrong, is, what some of the research, like what's emerging that we're looking for in leaders. And so one, that's been most common is, push. So leaders, managers are expected to drive results. And so most of us are given a specific target, given specific expectations, and that's what we drive towards. And that's what we communicate to our teams. And we give them the knowledge and the skills to, hit those milestones and hit those targets. But then comes in inspiring and motivating others. And I don't know about you. I've been in the professional world for a couple of decades now. And so I've worked for a number of different leaders. I've met a number of different leaders. And it's not always a no-brainer that a person can effectively do both. It's not a no-brainer that somebody is going to be so incredibly business-oriented and task-driven and have this mindset of this is exactly what we need to do to make our business succeed and be able to make tough choices. But on the other end is going to be really empathetic and motivational and a nurture and like, rah, rah, let's go. I'm not saying it's impossible, but I'm saying probably more often than not, one of these needs to be developed for them to really both be competitive and up to par. And so how are we effectively doing that, right? And, another thing to think about is the way that our business environment is changing. And so Pat and I are sitting here, finally sharing a screen. We met each other for the first time a couple of weeks ago in California on a business trip, but that was, we've been working together for a couple of months before that happened. We have a lot of our team members all around the world who we've not met yet. And so how do you transcend that digitally? How do you transcend that maybe you don't see everybody every day? Or let me correct that. You most definitely won't see everybody in your team every day unless you really have group meetings, every morning. And maybe that's not that likely. And so how do you keep that channel of communication? How do you keep that spirit? How do you really keep that passion? I think it's something that we're going to continue to learn about, and it's going to continue to evolve. But as soon as we learn best practices, a big part of that is going to be, okay, now we know what works in today's environment. How do we get that knowledge to everybody else? And so we did some research as well on what makes a great leader, right? So we're talking about pushing, we're talking about pulling, around motivation, around all of these different things. And based on all of our research, we came up with a number of competencies. Now, one thing I want to be very clear about is that depending on your organization and your culture, what makes a successful leader can be very different. So I don't want anybody to, be sitting there hearing me say, this is it, this is the secret recipe. And if every one of your leaders in the organization is really good at these competencies, like the sky's the limit. It's not necessarily the case. One thing is that our belief is that a person will be a truly, truly incredible leader if they understand what their strengths are and if they really leverage those. That's what's going to really help them stand apart, make an impact on their team, and make an impact on their organization. They need to be aware of the areas that they're not strong in and make a very conscientious decision around, is this something that's holding me back? Or is it something that I'm not really that great at, but I can surround myself with people that are going to be just exceptional at it, and it's not going to impact my performance or my relationships? Now, we work with a lot of brilliant companies that have different models. They have different competencies. Again, there's different philosophies. There's different fits for the organization. This is what we believe today in this world, that we live in, can work for a lot of organizations. But one of the things with QuestionPro is that we are a research organization. We do look to innovate. We do look to understand the market to really bring forward the thought leadership. But also at our core, we provide the technology to organizations that have done that work as well and found different models and found different theories to really empower them and say, if you work with organizations where there's a different kind of leadership model that resonates with them, we want to be the technology that brings that to life for you. And that's what Pat is going to be demoing in just a couple minutes. So what does 360-degree feedback accomplish? So we talk about these competencies, and I mentioned that the world around us has changed. In many cases, the way we work with people has changed. And historically, it's always been quite challenging. Like, you look at yourself in the mirror and you're like, well, I believe I'm this, this, and this. You're a sample size of one. And then you have your peers. And how you interact with them, they might have some different perceptions than you. Maybe there's some, agreement on what makes you really strong. Maybe there's some disagreement. How you interact with your team can oftentimes intentionally or very much unintentionally be different than how you communicate with your peers and how you communicate with your leader. So that 360 view is important because we do sometimes change our communication styles, and sometimes it's warranted, and sometimes we don't realize we're doing it. Maybe we're overly demanding of our team, but really accommodating to our peers, and we don't realize that. Now add this virtual world where some people are really skilled communicators digitally. Some people can really read cues. A lot of people can't. And so I might think that I'm doing a brilliant job with my team and I'm motivating everybody and I'm being inspirational, but maybe I'm not reaching everybody the same way because of the way I communicate, because of the frequency of communication, maybe because of like cultural differences where some things work. And so having that input is really critical. So when it comes to 360, oftentimes the first step is really understanding what is expected of me. Whatever your competency model is in your organization, whatever you truly believe is going to make a successful leader for your organization, it provides clarity. And we believe if you're strong in these areas or you can compensate or work on others, you're going to be truly exceptional here. And then the second thing is, how effectively am I delivering on these expectations? So from the feedback of different people, not just me and my belief and how I think I'm projecting myself and how I think I'm running my business, you can really get a much better data-driven understanding of those strengths and areas of opportunity. And then how can I do better? For all of us, we're constantly trying to think about what's the next step. How can I make a greater impact? How can I be a better leader? How can I be a better manager? How can I drive my business to be more successful? So all of that is about development. All of that is about creating a safe space where people can really exchange that information. And the person that gets it says, not only am I clear about what's expected of me now, and I understand perceptions of others, but I have this really great way of understanding what are some practical next steps that I can do to actually start to improve. And then later you can decide, do you want to have an executive coach? Do you want to take different classes? How can you take that to a different level? But you have this really robust data foundation for where to get started. And so I'll turn it over to Pat to give you some highlights of the platform. This is located on our website. The URL is at the bottom left hand. There are a lot of technologies out there. There really are, and every day there are more. And I think that's brilliant because many of us are out there, saying, how do we solve these challenges? How do we solve these really big challenges that are coming up and continue to evolve and they're different? We're really proud of what we built. And over the last year, we put significant development effort into building a more robust 360 because we believe in the importance of really, really outstanding leadership. And we want to be that partner to organizations to say, we have the technology that can really propel you. We can have the technology that can empower you, that can really transform your leaders. And these are just some of the differentiators that also Pat is going to touch on as he walks us through the platform. So Pat, without further ado, let me see if I can stop sharing my screen and turn it over to you.
Thank you. And I love how this is tying back into all the conversations that we've been having today. We're talking about bringing change and having this culture of change and being able to thrive in a context where everything's always changing. Making sure that we're equipping our leaders is really important. So this is a tool that kind of like ties it up here a little bit. It kind of like builds that bridge here. So let me just share my screen. Okay. Are you seeing my screen right now?
Almost, yes.
Okay.
Look at us.
Hey, perfect. Because yesterday this was not working. So I'm glad that we ironed out all the kinks yesterday. So yes, and I don't know who's listening to this now or in the future, but I guess I can preface by saying that our tool is being used by employers, right? So employers, basically organizations, and they're just looking for like an out-of-the-box experience. And also by consultants and executive coaches who kind of like, they love the technology and they want to bring their own model. They want to bring their own, secret sauce. And our tool really allows to customize as much as needed here. So what we're seeing here are some of the competencies that Sonia, you've just mentioned now. So we've got, everything from inclusive leadership to grit and resilience, all the way to impact and change management. You can see we have 8 here. And if I'm expanding here, we'll see the behaviors that are tied to each of those competencies, right? And so here we're going to see basically the scale of the answers. And one thing that I kind of like here is sometimes as a respondent myself, I'm not quite sure what the context is around a question. So I think it's really cool that we're allowing allowing basically the people building the survey to add a little bit of extra information if needed, so that we're making sure that we're measuring the right things and we're capturing the right data, because action plans and everything will be built based on what we're getting here. So the good thing here is when I talk about being able to adjust things and customize, so inside of a competency here, we can delete any question we have, or we can adjust them, or we can add more questions to this section, or we can completely delete this entire competency and add our own, essentially. So it's, when it comes to customizing, it's everything we can think of, we can make happen on this one here. How do you feel about this section, Sonia?
Sorry, between my coughs.
I wasn't seeing you. I'm focused on the thing here. Like, Crystal would say, Pat, you have the worst timing ever. I'm not seeing
I was like just about done, so it's good.
Okay.
No, I think you hit it right on. Like what we were saying before too, is that people have different models, right? And whether it's a consultancy that did a lot of research and came up with a specific model to say this is, what we believe is a really solid approach to leadership development, or an organization that is, building their own and feels like this is, what we want to drive internally. One of the great flexibilities of this platform is that it's completely configurable to the organization. And so we wanted to provide a foundation based on our experience and our research for areas that we think could be important. But again, at a core, what we do is we provide technology to our clients. So what we wanted to make sure is that it's very easy No matter if somebody's using this, as a template, as a starting point, or says, you know what, this really doesn't look like something that, I'm following today. So I'd love to have my own. The idea here is to really make it your own and to make it resonate. But to do it, to your point, in such a way that's easy for somebody to understand, because a lot of times these platforms are used, by top executives, by people who have a million things to do. And so the last thing we want is to ask them for extra time out of their busy schedule. They know that this is important, but also, especially in the world of, B2C consumers, where there are a lot of brilliant technologies that, are retail, that have made people's lives really easy, to get things done and to go through the different steps. We wanted to follow very much that same model, that somebody goes in, it's tailored to them, it's what drives their leaders, and they can really get it done in a heartbeat. That doesn't slow down their day, but still provides all the impact and insights to the person providing the feedback on how they can get better.
Yeah, and that's key, not slowing people down in their day. So like there's a lot of little features, and the way we've built this is to save a lot of time as we're using the tool. So I won't go into the design section, but essentially at QuestionPro, we love our branding, but we're not pushing our branding onto anyone. So basically, whether we're working with executive coaches or consultants or employers, you get to come up with your own colors, your own logo everywhere. You can brand this the way you want. So that's not a problem. We've got the settings section here. So we've got like general display setting. I'm going to bring you right here. Like I feel like this is interesting here. So we have, you can customize all the way to the relationships, right? So it's fairly standard to see, for example, these relationships on the left. So the manager, the peer, the direct report, a team member, other. And it's cool that we have those. And at the same time, it's also great if someone says, well, you know what, like I've got different relationships, I've got different wording here, I want to add my own. That's completely okay as well. So it kind of happens on the right here. You can add as many relationships as you want, and just run with this afterward. And then we have things such as setting the right anonymity threshold. And again, it's very customizable, right? So you can decide how many results have to come in for each of these relationships, so that we have access, everyone gets access to the reports, basically. All right. Language-wise, we already mentioned that we are a fairly global company. So for us, it was important to give access to the languages for all of our clients, because we've got clients all around the world. So we're pretty covered here. I won't go through the list, but you can see that we're pretty solid with that. So that's it for this first section here, the edit section. And I want to go straight into the distribution. So what we're seeing here is we can add many different deployments. So the way it would work, for example, for a consultant or executive coach, they could be creating different folders for each of their client, for example, each organization they're working with. And inside of these, so this is the view of one folder here. And we have like just one deployment because this is a demo environment, but you could imagine you have like all your deployments. You can use the title to name them in a way that is going to be very structured for you. So here we see that we've got this deployment that was here's the date. And then we know that it's still active. We've got 20 responses out of 25. So we've got a response rate of 80%. And so I could be adding new ones if I wanted, but for now, I'm just going to dive into this to see, okay, what's inside of this deployment. So here we've got a few things. So we see that we have 5 subjects, right? So John, Robin, Michael, Kate, Nathan. We see their email address. We see how many evaluations they've received, the status at this point. It's very easy to add new subjects inside of this deployment, or we can add more evaluators in this case. We can export participants as well. So everything is exportable when it comes to the participants, like all of the data, basically, whether it's the reports or the contacts that we have here. And then we go into the options, which I think is a really, really cool section, because it kind of shows how much flexibility we can bring here. So again, depending on how the admin is going to be using the tool, we give a lot of power to kind of like change the user experience here. So for example, what we see here is you can decide if the subject gets to self-evaluate or not, or if they can nominate their own evaluators, if they can access their reports, or if you want to control that and manage this differently a little bit, if managers can view nominations or approve evaluations. So there's a lot of information here that you can, like, whenever we basically have a client that is like, hey, can you add this thing? Like, this would be really relevant for us. Well, we're very responsive here, and we'll make sure that our clients get all of the settings that are needed for them to custom make the experience when it comes to the 360. What's your favorite one here, Sonia?
I know. Well, it's funny. I was like, this is like my favorite part of the platform, probably. But why it's my favorite part is because we worked with organizations, like, again, like I keep saying, there are almost as many cultures as there are organizations, and that many preferences. And so we've seen companies that say, listen, like, we want these leaders to get feedback, and we're completely okay giving them autonomy to select who they want to get feedback from. They can enter in the system. We trust that, they'll send out the invitations. As soon as the results are in, they're able to, based on the, anonymity threshold, see what the results are. But that's full autonomy, full transparency. And then we have clients that say, listen, we're maybe a little bit more traditional, and we'd actually like our managers to be involved in who the person who evaluates a leader, or, at the very least, we want them to review and approve who this person asked to evaluate. And then when the report comes in, actually before the leader receives the report, we'd like for managers to see it and sign off on it. And so it's not our place to say, well, you should be doing this or you should be doing that. Again, what we want, the spirit of this, is for these different managers, these different leaders, to be able to get insights on how they can continue to get better. And it's up to the organization how they want to run that process. So that's why, like, all of these different toggles, when Pat and I were looking at them, like, that's really, like, maybe even more than like a favorite one, which I might have some, is just what it speaks to. Is it, that it's a technology that will adjust to what your culture is or what your approach is, to make sure that when that information gets to the individual, they receive it in such a way that they're used to, and how the organizational culture works, and that it's not something that's like really abrupt, where it's like, wait, usually we have these different steps, and now I'm just getting this information and I need to do everything myself. Or in the opposite end, where, usually we're, pretty open, everyone's got autonomy to do different things, but now you're telling me that there are these 20 different steps that we have to go through, and it doesn't align with what I'm used to. It's that, like, really the alignment of empowering developing leaders to what they've learned to expect and appreciate with the organization where they are.
Love it. Exactly. Yes. And when it comes to communication, very simple. We have like a lot of templates that are already out of the box, which either people get to use them or modify them and use them, or just scrap and use their own. And then they can basically create templates that they can reuse afterwards. So it makes it very easy, very simple. But you can see here the interface is fairly straightforward. So here we have a subject invite, but we can toggle to have an evaluator invite. And then we get to just see, okay, who are we sending this to? We can decide who this is coming from. If we want to adjust this here, no problem. Then we can, like I was talking about, create a new template, and we can see it here. And from there, we're good to go. And we can also set reminders, right? So evaluator reminder and a subject reminder. So to basically just improve the odds of having people respond to this, because everyone's busy. Sometimes people forget. And then we can also, which is really a cool feature, we can schedule emails in the future. So that way, I'm thinking of a fairly large deployment with many teams. And if we're staggering the dates, basically it's possible to kind of like batch all of this in one go. All of the communication is done in one shot. And then, we can just set it for the future, and we know that it's going to be sent out. Template wise, we have a lot of different templates for all of the communications that normally happen with a 360, the deployment of a 360 tool such as this one. And then again, we can add new templates. We can adjust any of those. And we've got the sent history, which I kind of like the scheduled mail. So, sometimes someone else from the team can kind of access the admin account and go there and be like, oh, okay, I can see everything that's being scheduled, everything that's being sent already. So it gives a lot of structure to the deployment, which is important when the deployments are a little bit larger than not. So that's like the admin view that we're seeing here, but I want to also show real quick like the employee portal. So this is kind of what it looks like for someone who's being evaluated here. So you can so everything is customizable. So the text that you're seeing here, this is text that you can customize. And so we see the evaluators, the evaluations, we see the nominations. And in this case, because the option was toggled on, myself as someone who's being evaluated, I could be nominating some people that I would love to have evaluate me. And then whenever the report is ready, whether it's being generated for me automatically or not, then this would come here and I would be able to see the report. And we're going to dive into the report eventually, but like in a few minutes, basically. So that's it for this view here. If I go to report options, so that's really cool as well. So basically, as Sonia was mentioning, there's different ways of communicating the results. Here in this case, you can set up some rules so that in this specific case, we have a scenario where the subject, they can get automatically access to the reports when, and then you set up some rules. So you could say, okay, so when 5 evaluations have been completed, excluding themselves, then yes, let's let them get the report being sent to them automatically. And then you can basically turn this off, turn this on. You can basically make it based on the number of days or weeks or evaluations. So, it's very flexible again in how people are experiencing the 360 tool here. Anything else you'd like to add on this part, Sonia?
No, I think I'm looking at the time and I could add like a million things, but I think for the sake of time, you did a really nice job covering it. So we can keep going. Okay,
cool. So let me dive right into, so, you're doing a deployment and you're the HR leader or you're the consultant, and you want to have like a full view. And this is one example of a report, what it looks like. And by the way, this can be configured in any way you want as well. So this is just one way of configuring it. And I'll show you right after like how you can change the configuration. But basically here, what you see is, okay, we've got a report for John here. He's surveyed himself. So, and then he had one manager basically do this for him, two peers and one direct report. And then we start diving into the data. So we have here the 8 competencies ranked from the strongest to the ones where there's the most opportunity to improve. And then we're diving into, so we've got the competencies, and then we have the behaviors. So behavior-wise, here we have just an overview of the top 5 behaviors by score, and then the lowest scores as well are here. And from there, what we have is for each competency. So for example, the inclusive leadership here, these are the behaviors that we have. And we can see basically the scores so we can slice and dice the data in so many different ways. So that's one way to look at it. And then we have this other way to look at it where, again, we've got the behaviors, and then you can see how things have been scored by themselves, by their manager, by their peers, by their direct report. And you can basically have this across all of your different competencies. So now we've got the grit and resilience, we've got the same view, and then we go to integrity. So we have this for the 8 competencies. And of course, if you were to change your competencies or change your behaviors, the reporting is going to follow that. And the way to get this done is if you go to analytics, an individual report. So what I just showed you is basically built with these blocks. We call those blocks. So you can have like your cover page, your introduction, and then you basically build those blocks so that you can get the data that you're actually looking for. Anything on that, Sonia, you want to add? You're the timekeeper at this point.
I know, it's like, Sonia, you want to keep running overtime? It's on you. No, I would just say, I think, the same thing like we've been saying with the whole system. One of the things that we get asked most about when it comes to 360 is the configurability of the report. And some of our clients will say, listen, we want to group recommendations in here's the overall, or here are your greatest strengths, here are your greatest opportunities, or here are your priorities for improvement. A lot of our clients ask for smart, like contextual text to say if you score a certain, below a certain number, we're going to provide this recommendation automatically, or if you score above a certain number. Basically, there are a lot of different philosophies in the way people want to communicate findings, because we know, one, it's important to collect accurate information, of course. It's probably as important, if not more, in how the communication is communicated or shared back to the person being evaluated or providing feedback. So that's why we really spend a lot of time, not only in the beginning that Pat was showing in how we collect that information, but also in configurability of the report to suit different companies or consultancy styles, and how you want to deliver that in such a way that you believe will have the greatest impact and motivate and inspire the person to actually take action on the results.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And typically, like, what I love to do is whenever we're talking with someone who's like, oh, this could be interesting, we love to tailor that presentation to what it would really look like for them. And it kind of like, we get to see if we're checking all the boxes when it comes to what they actually need. But it's just kind of like impossible to showcase everything in like a 10-minute. But I think, generic wise, like we're it gives a pretty good idea.
Yeah, absolutely. And so that's like what Pat and my really goal for this small amount of time that we had with you all is just to give you the high level possibility of what we built. And if it's something that's a priority for you, your organization, your business, get in touch with us. We popped in the chat where you can find us, where you can find more information on our webpage around the 360s, how you can get a hold of me and Pat. We're also, of course, on LinkedIn, so you can get a hold of us there. We provided our emails here because maybe those are a little bit more difficult to find than us on LinkedIn. But really appreciate all of your time. So glad that you joined us for this, because it means that you too are thinking about leadership right now and developing managers. And so really grateful to share this time with you. And with that, I think we are on to the final portion of our XDay, which is the wellness giveaway. So Pat, thank you so much for all the insights. Thank you for the demo. It was really great. And we'll see you all in the next session with a giveaway. Thank you, everybody. Thanks.
Hey, guys. Amazing job. You know what? I pulled Gia up here. I wanted to leave Sonia up here because you've seen Pat and I's face all day long. And so I wanted to make sure you saw all the magic behind the scenes and everyone got a shout out. If you are with us, thank you so much for joining us for almost 3 hours of streaming for Workforce Wednesday. We've got 5 minutes. I might burn that 5 minutes of time just 3 hours. And we are so grateful that you guys have been joining us across these 3 days, from Research Monday, CX Tuesday, now to Workforce Wednesday. And just a reminder, QuestionPro is a full service platform. We are here for your insights, for your customer experience support, and for your employee experience support. We really can do it all within one platform. Literally, you don't have to leave a browser window to make all of those things happen. I think that's very key. And, I really want to just thank everyone for coming. We do have a giveaway, but Sonia, there was a little programming change Gia and I made behind the scenes. We're going to announce it on social media, because we still had people registering this morning.
Ah, very cool.
And so
that's a good reason to hold off announcing.
We wanted to give everybody a chance. But if you are joining us, please make sure that you, where is it? Get a chance to, it's so weird. The overlays work slightly strangely. Get a chance to get Candace's book from earlier. We want to make sure that you get a signed copy. We also had a book giveaway on Monday. We had a masterclass giveaway yesterday, and we've got a book and wellness kit giveaway today. So we are just so grateful for everyone. Anybody have last parting words? Sonia, you got some employee experience wisdom for us? Just like 2-second nugget? Or we could just talk about
2 seconds? You know me better than that. Girl. No, I would just say, like, for everybody that joined us, we're so grateful for your passion, for your desire to make the world work a better place. We hope that we share some insights that will help you. Please reach out to us. Again, I think all of us will advance so much better, faster, in a more impactful way if we work on this together. But just really, really grateful for everybody that joined us today. It inspires me and it motivates me to continue to do what I do, and continue to, see more smiles like all of yours, because people love what they do and they feel fulfilled by it, and it just has this incredible ripple effect on the rest of their lives. So all of you that joined us, thank you for being in this greater mission with us.
Amazing. Thank you, everybody, and have a wonderful rest of the week. Thank you for joining us for Spring North America XDay 2022, and we will see you in the fall.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye, guys.